trail to the cow country. Don't send my mail, just hand it to me. Well, 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 I'm gonna stay right here where I'm at. She means too much to me. Oh, well, kindly Reverend Thomas, I made him a promise he would make the two of us just one. Let's forget the trail to the cow country. Don't send my mail, just hand it to me. Well, 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 gonna stay right here where I'm at. Do-down.
Straighten up, baby. Why don't you fly right sometime? Straighten up, baby. Why don't you fly right sometime? That will ease my temperature and move my world in mine. Well, I've known that girl from a kin of Cain. She got behind tombstones and had young haze. Straighten up, baby. Why don't you fly right sometime?
Get on your feet, make me nervous when you're in your seat. Take off your shoes and pat your feet. We doing the dance that can't be beat. We barefoot, we're barefoot, we're barefoot, we're barefoot. Went to a party the other night. Long Toss Alley was out of sight. We were weak in our high sneakers too. She's doing the dance without any shoes. She's barefoot. She's barefoot. She's barefoot. She's barefoot. red zone. Bet you can barefoot all night long. Take off your shoes and throw them away. Come back and get them another day. Yeah, we're barefoot. We're barefoot. We're barefoot. We're barefoot. He said to Sue, if I barefoot, would you barefoot too? Sue told John, I'll stir your stew. I'm barefooting ever since I was two. They barefoot. They barefoot. They barefoot. They barefoot.
Good morning, citizens of Tampa and colleagues of Tampa City Council. Tampa City Council now come to session. Special call agenda 9/23/21. Invocation taken by Mr. Dingfelder this morning. Mr. Dingfelder? We're on you, sir.
Are you up, Mr. Chairman?
We're up, sir. We're up.
Good morning. How you guys? So, it's my honor and privilege to introduce the invocation this morning. The Reverend John Reese has been the rector of St. Andrew's Episcopal Church in downtown Tampa since 2005. The church is located a couple of blocks away from City Hall. It's the oldest Episcopal church on the west coast of Florida, founded in 1871. Before coming to Tampa, Father Reese served at a church in Fredonia, western New York, for 8 years. He was born and raised in northern New Jersey, just a few miles from Midtown Manhattan. He's a graduate of the University of Colorado and the Virginia Theological Seminary. Before answering the call to ordain ministry, Father Reese served 4 years in the U.S. Army and 5 years as a deputy sheriff in Colorado, patrolling the streets of suburban Colorado Springs. He's been married to Jeanette since 1986, and they have a son, Hamilton, who I'm sorry to say is at Florida State University. I'm a Gator. All right, good job, Hamilton. Anyway, it's my honor and privilege to introduce and ask Father Reese to join us, give the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we ask you to bless our city with honorable industry, sound learning, and pure manners. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil way. Defend our liberties and fashion into one united people the multitudes brought here out of many nations and tongues. Give the spirit of wisdom to those whom in your name we entrust the authority of government, that there may be justice and peace, and that, through obedience to your law, we may show forth your praise among all the peoples we meet. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, send down upon Bill, Joseph, John, Orlando, Guido, Charlie, and Luis the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all the people of Tampa. In the name of God we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic,
To the republic
one
which
nation,
stands
under
God,
God,
one nation,
indivisible,
under God,
with justice for all.
liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Carlson.
Here.
Maniscalco. Here. Dingfelder.
Here.
Citro.
Here.
Vieira. Miranda.
Here.
Good.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Shelby.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Tampa City Council, members of the public, Martin Shelby, the City Council Attorney. This is a special call, hybrid live and virtual public hearing, and it is being held, as you heard, with a physical quorum present in City Council chambers, and it is being conducted for the purpose of affording residents of the City of Tampa, Florida, and other interested persons an opportunity to express their views, both orally and in writing, on the proposed issuance of the City of Tampa, Florida Celadon Obligated Group Revenue Bonds. And that is the purpose of today's public hearing. It is available to be seen on Spectrum Channel 640, Frontier Channel 15, and live on the internet at tampa.gov/live stream. Now, those who have wanted to participate in writing have had the opportunity to do so, and that is going to be made part of the proceedings. And those instructions were available in the notice that was posted on the website at tampa.gov/city council. Now, for those who were not able to pre-register to participate in this special call public hearing, they can attend in person and use CMT that's available on the second floor, Communications Media Technology, here at 315 East Kennedy Boulevard. And please note that those attending the meeting in person should wear face masks inside City Hall. Mr. Chairman, in accordance with these rules that have been adjusted to address the hybrid live and virtual meeting, I ask that you make a motion, council make a motion to waive the rules and adopt the meeting as set forth in the notice and agenda.
Motion, Mr. Shelby. Mr. Miranda has moved it. Mr. Luis Vieira seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, City Council. I believe we have Mr. O'Hara and Mr. Massey available for presentation if it's necessary. I believe they probably want to have some opening comments.
All right, we'll go to item, you want to go to the item first with Mr. Massey and then go to public comment in reference to the special hearing item, Mr. Shelby?
Yes, this would be a motion to open the public hearing, please.
Motion open. Motion by Mr. Miranda, second by Mr. Vieira. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're now open for the special call hearing.
I do see Mr. Massey and some other speakers available, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Massey, you have the floor, sir. You're recognized.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, City Council. Morris Massey.
Can I get a little volume from IT, please? Try it again, Mr. Massey.
Good morning, City Council. Can you hear me? This is
It's
Morris
getting better.
Massey.
Can't hear him. Try it one more time, Mr. Massey.
Good morning. Can you hear me now?
We got you, sir. Thank you.
Great. I apologize. Good morning, City Council. Morris Massey, Deputy City Attorney. The purpose of this special call meeting and hearing is to conduct a public hearing and take public comment on, and then for you all to consider a resolution setting forth the intent of the City of Tampa to proceed with the issuance of tax-exempt bonds in the amount not to exceed $350 million to be used in connection with the acquisition, construction, and equipping of a paper fiber manufacturing facility by Celadon Tampa Fiber LLC and its sole member, Celadon Development Corporation LLC, at 2801 Guy N. Berger Boulevard on property being leased from the Tampa Port Authority within the City of Tampa. I want to make it clear that these bonds are non-recourse. They're approved as to the city, very much like the University of Tampa and Moffitt conduit financing that you all approved a little while ago. The city will have no obligation to repay the bonds, and Celadon has specifically agreed to indemnify the city from any such obligation. There are a number of people available if you have questions, including the city's outside bond counsel, Mr. Steve Miller, Celadon's bond counsel, Mr. Chauncey Lever, Representatives from Celadon, and I probably mispronounced your name, but I apologize. I believe Tim and Merritt Zossel, who are the CEO and Chief Administrative Officers of Celadon. Dennis Rogero and I are both available. Whit Rimmer is also available from the city. Before proceeding with consideration of the resolution, this is a public hearing required pursuant to Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code. Notice of the public hearing has been published in both the Tampa Bay Times and on our website as required by RS regulations. So I would ask that before you vote on the resolution, obviously you take public comment, and then we are obviously all here available if you have questions regarding this proposed resolution. Thank you. Here.
Thank you, Mr. Massey. Did the applicant want to speak first now before I open it up for questions from council and public comment?
Good morning. This is Tim Zozel, and
Hi, I'm Merritt Zozel.
we've been pursuing this project for quite some time in Tampa. We're very excited, and we're now moved to the final stages before we break ground is to complete the financing, and the municipal non-recourse debt that you're being a conduit issuer for is critical to completing that financing and allowing us to create approximately 300 jobs in the Tampa area on our first stage of this project. We've been very delighted by the support that we've got from the community at various levels, and look forward to being a wonderful long-term employer in your community.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from any council members? Mrs. Item. Ms. Dingfelder, you're recognized.
Good morning, folks. I just wanted, I've looked into the company and looked into the process and quite a bit, and I'm very excited not only about the employees that you'll be hiring, but also about the environmental attributes of your systems and your process. And obviously, in this troubled planet of ours, we all need to chip in any way we can. So thanks for stepping up, and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else on this item? All right, anybody from the public on the second floor to speak on this item? Do we have anybody on the second floor from the public to speak on this item? We have anybody registered to speak on this item? All right, no one on the second floor, no one registered. Motion to move to close.
Second.
Moved it. Mr. Citro, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Randall, will you read the resolution or
It just
move the
has to be,
resolution?
it just has to be moved, Mr. Chairman.
Pardon me?
Just
Just
move the
had-
resolution, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman.
Yes.
Second. I'll move the resolution.
All right, Mr. Miranda has moved it. Mr. Citro, second. Roll call vote, please.
Carlson? Maniscalco? Dingfelder?
Yes.
Citro?
Yes.
Vieira? Miranda?
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. All right, gentlemen, we'll,
Adjourn the meeting.
Yes,
But you can adjourn the special call.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
all right, motion adjourned. Ms. Citro has motion adjourned.
Move to receive and file any items.
Mr. Miranda moved to receive and
Special
file.
call.
Second, anyone? Second, Mr. Carlson, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. We're adjourned. We're going to go right into the workshop.
Move to open the workshop, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Randall moved to open the workshop. Mr. Carlson is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Can we take roll call again, please?
Yes, sir, we will.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Carlson? Maniscalco?
Here.
Dingfelder? Citro? Vieira? Miranda?
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you, Madam
Just
Deputy
for the
Clerk.
record, so that I'm just not, but Mr. Citro went downstairs to introduce the officer of the month.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Sheldon.
without having to repeat myself as to my earlier comments, I'd like council to waive the rules to make the the rules consistent with the notice and the statements that are in the agenda relative to virtual and remote participation.
Yes, sir. You want to just restate that? You want a motion?
No, I'd like a motion, please, for the record.
Motion for the record?
So moved.
Mr. Maniscalco moved it. Mr. Carlson second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you,
Sheldon.
council.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir, you recognize.
may I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. As always, we are here to honor those who serve us, our fire, our police. And I always start out this conversation and these commendations with, if you really want to know what these women and men go through on the Tampa Police Department and what they do while on duty, go to the Citizens Police Academy for the city of Tampa. You will find out from the moment they put on their uniform to the moment they get off duty what they go through. And you will have all new respect for the men and women of Tampa Police Department. But today we are here to give a commendation to the Officer of the Month. If I had it my way, every officer would be Officer of the Month. Today we're here to recognize Officer Aaron Tyler Monteith. But I'm going to have the Chief explain why he is getting this commendation today. Chief, if you would.
Thank you, Joe. Morning, Council. Ruben Delgado, Acting Chief. And like Councilman Citro said, we have 1,000 officers, roughly 1,000 officers, and we only get to do this one time a month. So 12 officers are awarded this award, and there's so many more that are probably more deserving to receive one as well. But this one here is a little different than your normal Officer of the Month that you've heard in the past. This one's not about how many arrests are on the street or how many guns are taken off the street. I want to talk a little bit about what Officer Monteith does for us and why we wanted to recognize him as Officer of the Month. So Tyler's a member of our Critical Incident Stress Management Team, which is a Tcc-Am team that we employ to help officers and help respond to situations of critical incidences to help get through some of tragic events. And they got counseling sessions and they stay with officers and families. And he's done it for several years now. And I just want to touch on a couple things that he's done, and we kind of threw him into the lead role of this team based on some retirements, and he's done a phenomenal job over the last few months. The first incident that I want to talk about where Officer Monteith really showed his leadership and his skills in leading this type of team was the loss that we had of Jesse Matson back in March. Officer Monteith immediately jumped in, called to see how he can get involved with the family, assisted Jesse's widow Danielle and the children. And when I say assisted, he literally spends day and night with the families, getting them through the process, getting them to where they have to go. There's a ton of paperwork that they have to get through that Tyler kind of just monitors and makes sure everything is done right. But more importantly, he becomes a true friend of the family, somebody they can lean on in this difficult time of their grief. He assists with all the funeral preparations for Officer Matson, goes to the funeral home with Danielle, and kind of walks her through some of the processes that are difficult for her to handle at that time. Another officer that we had shortly after Jesse Matson was off-duty, Officer Travis Comrie passed away. And again, Monteith took the lead role in that case, working with his family, who some of them were out of state, coordinating the travel plans, getting them around to where they needed to be in the city. And again, dropped everything he was doing. This is above and beyond his regular duties as an officer, and truly helped Travis Comrie's family get through and navigate through that process. And then, and I'll just touch on it, it's not in the write-up, but I'll touch on it because I spent several days with Tyler recently with the death of Matthew Coleman. And I can tell you that Tyler was kind of thrown into the lead position of this after Officer Matson, just due to the retirement of the person who led the team. And he's been a pillar of strength for these families when they're going through these traumatic times. He responds to tragic scenes and helps out officers. But I saw it firsthand with Officer Coleman and the hours that he spent with the family and getting them through, and the hours he spent at the hospital. So it's not your typical Officer of the Month award, but it's something that he does. It's a very tough job to do. Not a lot of people have the makeup to handle that type of position, and we wanted to recognize him for everything he does for not only our officers that see tragic events, but for the families of our fallen officers and getting them through those times. So With that, I want to award Officer Aaron Tyler Monteith Officer of the Month for September 2021.
Officer Monteith, it reminds me of the good things that you have done. Reminds me of what was told to me years ago. When you have pain and sorrow, share it with others and it's cut in half. And when you have happiness and joy, share it with others and it's doubled. Thank you for helping these families out. We're going to present this commendation to Officer Aaron Tyler Monteith, Officer of the Month, September 2021. Because of your dedication to service, commitment to excellence, and going above and beyond the call of duty, you have been chosen for this mark of distinction as Officer of the Month. Tampa City Council, your peers and superiors would like to recognize you for your hard work, your dedication to the community in which you serve. We commend you for your commitment to your fellow officers, their families, and your initiative and sincerity to help others in their time of need. It is the honor of Tampa City Council to present Officer Aaron Tyler Monteith with commendation on September 23rd, 2021. Officer, I thank you very much for everything you've done.
Thank you.
I believe there's some people here you may want to introduce.
Thank you, Councilman. I have with me this morning my mother, Kathy, and some dear friends of ours, Rick and Lee, lifelong friends. Thank you to the chief, council member, and to council for all your kind words. If I can, I'd like to elaborate on some of the things we do. I feel it's extremely important, especially in this day and age. Our Tcc-Am team, you know, a lot of the things we do, it's very visual when it comes to the funerals and things like that. But probably the pillar of what we do is just looking out for the mental health of our peers. None of us are you know, psychologists or anything of that nature, but we do have additional training. We all belong to the Tampa regional team that we are able to tap into their resources, which do include mental health counselors, chaplains, and things of that nature. We respond out to all things deemed critical incident, and our only job is to look at the mental health of our officer or sometimes our civilian employees like our dispatchers. It's extremely important because, you know, I believe that in order for the officer to give their best to our members of the city, they have to show up or arrive at their best. So we have to keep them at their best. We talk about, you know, how awesome our retirement here is and everything, but it's my job. I take it upon myself to be my job and the job of our team to make sure those officers see that retirement, to make sure that they're healthy and that their family life is good for that retirement. So I think it's extremely critical. And one last thing, you know, in 2015 there was a study done that took a national average of critical incidents that officers see. The average person will see 1 to 2 critical incidents in their entire lifetime. Officers will see, on average, 200 critical incidents in their 25-year career. That number is even heightened more whenever you deal with a city such the size of Tampa or larger, because we deal with more people and more incidents than you would if you were like a rural deputy or something like that. So it's just extremely crucial that we take care of our people so that our people can take care of the citizens of Tampa. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer. Mr. Vera.
Thank you very much, sir, Mr. Chairman. And Officer, thank you for all your work. It seems from what Chief Delgado said that you're the comforter in chief there, so to speak, and that's such an important role to play. If my memory serves me right, the Sermon on the Mount says, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. I believe that's how it goes. And, you know, I always read that to say, not necessarily that someone is mourning, that they're blessed because they're mourning. Maybe there's a duty on people to comfort those who mourn, and that's what you're doing. And you do it from somebody who's walked down that road. It's something that most of us on City Council, Chairman Goods of course excluded, I don't think can speak to, which is being a first responder and knowing the risks that y'all take every single day, and seeing what you and your colleagues go through, but stepping into that role and just, dealing with things as small as paperwork after a loss of a loved one, for insurance, for whatever it may be, for financial issues, can be so heavy. Just taking a piece of paper and filling it out can be so emotionally heavy, and you're there to hold their hand. For these officer deaths, while our city mourns, you're over there on the front line helping them out. So just thank you for all you do, and your mom there should be very proud of her son. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Ms. Maniscalco, anything, sir?
Thank you very much. Sorry, my voice is very, But anyways, thank you for your service, for your sacrifice. We appreciate you very much. It takes a lot of strength to do what you do, not just as a police officer, but in comforting these families and being with them. And we truly don't have the words to show our appreciation. And thank you to your mother who's with you and your friends behind you for being with you today for this special moment. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Carlson, recognized.
You have one of the most difficult jobs around in our community, so thank you for all you do. We, as city council members, attend these services, and everybody's at a loss for words because there's such difficult venues to go to. So thank you for being there to guide the families and guide all of us, and thank you for your family for supporting it.
Ms. Dingfellow, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's interesting, about just a couple of weeks ago, Chief Delgado was in front of us, and we were talking about officer mental health in a very big way, in a very important way. The thing that jumps out to me, and probably obvious to everybody involved, is the concept of PTSD. And I don't think most of us, we think of you guys as heroes. We hear that term a lot, and you are heroes, but you're not superhero. You don't have Superman or Superwoman's impenetrable skin. You're human. Officers are all human, and therefore we need to recognize that, and we need to address any issues that come along, and we need to fund those needs as well. So, Chief, make sure that next year in budget we step up and address those issues. But Officer, thank you for all you do and your team. I know it's always a team effort, and thanks to your mom and your family.
Thank you, Councilman.
Ms. Miranda, you recognize, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor to know you by Zoom. We get to meet a lot of people now by Zoom. But, every day in life is a beautiful day until that day happens. That's something that you, the one that have to go knock on the door, speak to the person, and stay with them. It takes a special kind of individual to do what you do, because we take life that everything is beautiful. The sun's going to rise, the moon's going to come up at night, and it'll rain when it has to, and it'll be beautiful at the beach and everything else. But within those 24 hours, anything can happen at any time to any police department in the whole country. And individuals like yourselves are the ones that hold that responsibility to make sure that the status quo of continuing life continues in the mannerism in which they were accustomed to. And it's very difficult when someone passes away, that the person that goes has got to be, they know they take you into you're part of their family when you join them. And that's the hardest thing to do, to be accepted, and the hardest thing to do, to appear. And both of them are happening because of individuals like yourselves who make sure that the future of that family stays together. And I'm glad that you were honored by the Tampa Police Department, and thank you for your outstanding job and your services, and continue doing what you're doing. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Chief, we get a lot of officer and money accommodation, but I think this one's kind of special today. It's out of the box, and it's needed to recognize all different aspects of the police department. Not just for someone saving a life, but there are other avenues in the police department that people travel to do good work for the citizens of Tampa. And I can say, sir, I've been in your shoes there to comfort families. I can remember my first death was Officer Benita White. My squad, Sergeant Sugar Squad. Then came Norris Epp, who went into the ocean on the airplane crash when I was with the family. So I understand the job that entails to be with families, because it's tough at times. Me being in the industry, dealing with all different type of family members who show up and trying to make sure they're comforted and make sure other people aren't interfering. And it's a lot of issues that go on when you're helping a grieving family get through that troubled time. So I understand it. So again, I say thank you for your service and what you're doing, because it takes a person who has a strong skill and a personality skill to be able to work with families. So again, Chief, thank you for recognizing this officer and your staff. Mr. Citro.
Yes, we also have other organizations from around the city that want to show their gratitude, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, Councilman.
Morning.
Darla Portman, President, Tampa PBA. We've got Jimmy Owens, Vice President, Tampa PBA. I'm honored here today to go ahead and give this award to Tyler. Tyler is one of our alternates on our directors of the board, so he also represents the PBA. So I'm thrilled to go ahead and get him one of these. This is actually a board that's made by a sergeant at TPD. Everything that we give it comes from another officer that's made it. So this is from Danny Rhodes, Sergeant Danny Rhodes. He made this specifically for you. Awesome. I also have tickets for 4 from Sergeant Brevy, retired Sergeant Brevy from Busch Gardens for your family. But I also want to thank you for all the things that you do for us. We get calls out all the time, and we're out there with you when an officer has the worst day of their lives. And you're there to support them and have their confidence, and we appreciate you every day. So thank you, Tyler. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
Morning, officer. How you doing? Mike MacArthur with Steps Towing Service, and on behalf of Todd Stepp and Steps Towing Service, I want to congratulate you on a job well done, and we're so grateful to have officers like you in our community, and we're very proud to be a part of the Tampa Police Department organization. So with that being said, we'd like to present you with a $50 Bass Pro gift card and a night out in our company limousine. Sounds like you need to take some time off, take the family out, and I'm still challenging everybody to pull up the Bass Pro in the limo. So let's see if you guys got it.
We can do that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
And step up to the microphone. We're having trouble hearing.
Yep. Good morning, Council. Brian Ramirez, Christina Steffen with Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority, THEA. I want to thank you for your bravery and commitment for what you do to our fallen officers and their families. Small token of our appreciation, gift card, Publix, and some other goodies there. So you enjoy it, and thank you for your services. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Job well done.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Good morning. Officer Monteith, appreciate you. I think, no one really realizes that sort of a job duty until it's absolutely needed. So Dustin Portillo with Casper's Company McDonald's, and I want to present to you this beautifully engraved watch for Officer of the Month, and there's a little card with your name and your badge number on there. And just want to say thank you for what you do. I don't think there's a watch.
No.
Okay. Well, there will be one now.
There will be.
So thank you very much, sir.
Thank
Appreciate you, and thank you
Very
all.
nice. Thank you.
As well.
Thank you.
Mr. Dingford, I remember when I got a watch, man. His is engraved now. Wow. Wow.
Thank you.
You can bite into it, too.
Yes, Thunderbug is here.
Michael, where's your costume?
I know. I'm wearing it. I'm Michael Kilgore. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of the Columbia Restaurant Group. Good morning. Richard Gonsmart is fond of saying that none of us is as strong as all of us. I really appreciate what you do to help those who help us. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. You have a $100 gift card to our Columbia Restaurant, all 7 locations in the state.
Well, I work in Ybor, so
we'll see you there.
Yeah, we gotta take mom. Thank you.
Yeah, take your mom.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mary Lou Bailey, and I'm here on behalf of Zoo Tampa at Lowry Park. Thank you so much for your service and your service in serving our other fine officers and their family. It means a tremendous amount. And on behalf of the volunteers that serve on the board at Zoo Tampa, we're presenting you with a family membership. It's an annual membership, so you can take your whole family. And it also comes with access to our special events, like Creatures of the Night is opening next weekend. I'll be there with my kids. Maybe we'll see you there. But anyway, thank you again for your service and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, council members and Officer Monteith. My name is Lenny Earhart. I'm here with the Tampa Theater, and we want to thank you very much for your excellence and support for your fellow colleagues. It's got to be a very difficult job, and I'm sure they're very grateful. I know that we are, and with that said, we'd like to have you take a little self-care at the Tampa Theater. We have an annual membership for you and some treats, and we hope that you'll be able to take some time and come and visit us real soon.
Thank you.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Take care.
Are you tired yet? No, sir. We have a few things here that we'd like to present to you on behalf of the Prestige Portraits. We're going to provide you with a gift certificate so you can go have your family portraits done. On behalf of the Tampa Metropolitan YMCA, we're providing you with a gift certificate so you can have a complimentary membership. On behalf of the Chicho's Restaurant Group, we're providing you with your choice breakfast, lunch, and dinner at their establishments. On behalf of Bella Brava, which is a new restaurant in Midtown, we're going to provide you with a gift certificate so you can go enjoy yourself for dinner. And Yummy House China Bistro, they're going to provide you with a gift certificate so you can go enjoy yourself at lunch or dinner. My name is Steve Michelini, and I'm here and proudly presenting these on behalf of these individual companies. And we recognize you for your excellence in your performance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Again, officer, we thank you very, very much for everything you do. We thank the family for everything that you do, because when they watch you walk out, they hope you come home. All right? Thank you, officer.
Thank you, Councilman.
There you go. Yep. You got it? You got to take pictures. All right, pal. We're going to go take a few pictures.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning, sir.
Hey, you look familiar.
I'm here to present a commendation to Lisa Chesser, and I've got several neighborhood leaders here today who you also know, and one of them is Sean Brown, whose birthday it is today, by the way. I just want to present this on behalf of City Council to Lisa. The Tampa City Council wishes to award this commendation to Lisa Chesser for her tireless work and commitment to the homeless population in South Tampa through Hope on the Horizon. Hope on the Horizon began as a means to feed and furnish local veterans and has grown to include individuals and families within the South Tampa area. I think that one of the estimates is that there are as many as 300 people living in South Tampa without homes. And Lisa and Sean and others run food banks and all kinds of programs to help. People think that only rich people live in South Tampa, and it's absolutely not true. Lisa has helped countless families and people as they transition from homeless to home, helping with furniture money for utility hookups, filling refrigerators, and whatever else may be needed. Having experienced homelessness herself, Lisa is uniquely qualified to assist this community with dignity and compassion. As need increased during the COVID-19 pandemic, Lisa increased her financial support so our community would not lose their utilities and would not go hungry. City of Tampa is a better place for having been served by Lisa, the angel in steel-toed boots and blue jeans.
I would like to thank the community. We would like to thank y'all for the recognition of the hard work in the community. Hope on the Horizon is a grassroots, 100% free, volunteer-based. We are committed to helping those in need, and we're kind of just like the funnel between the community and those in need. We actually met with John Bennett for a few minutes yesterday and during his busy time, and we are going to create a strategy to link all the entities together so we have no missing links, so we can stand strong as a city. And if I can leave you with anything, is if we want to make this city and this world a better place, the only thing we can do is look in the mirror and make that change ourselves. So once again, we thank you.
See if they want to say. Anybody want to say?
Mr. Vieira, come.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Councilman Carlson, for bringing this forward, sir. And ma'am, congratulations on getting your commendation today. But we know that folks like you do this work not for a moment like this, but for the reward that you get in doing the good work and giving back to people who often don't have a voice. So thank you for your work, ma'am, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Any comment, Mr. Maniscalco?
Thank you very much for all your work in the community and for helping those that are less fortunate and improving their quality of life and showing them not just help but dignity. And we certainly appreciate all that you do. Thank you very much.
Mr. Tripp?
I'd like to thank you for all the work you do. Most of these people are overlooked by the rest of society. You've taken a long, hard look and helped these people, and for that I thank you. I truly thank you.
Mr. Dingfellow, you recommend?
Lisa, when we met briefly downstairs and you were hanging out with Stephanie there, I thought you were just one of the, just a rabble-rouser, just like Stephanie.
I got worried, too.
I am.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. You're rabble-rousing in the right direction. Obviously, having lived most of my life in South Tampa, I totally agree with Mr. Carlson. There's folks in need everywhere in this community, and we so appreciate all the work that you and your friends and your daughter in the background, I'm sure you got her helping as well, but thank you very much.
You have anything, sir?
Thank you very much, Lisa. Your work is endless. And, we have 4 seasons in a calendar. But when you live in Tampa, you only have 2 seasons, summer and Christmas. And what happens is that when you look at our season, right now is coming your busy season. When fall and winter come this way, what happens from the northern area? They come where? South. So your efforts are going to increase, and your friends and helpers that are helping you have to be as commended as much as you are. Thank you for the work you do, and hopefully we can find a solution to this real quick. Thank you very much.
Well, Lisa, thank you for your work in the community. I mean, like Mr. Rana said, endless. All my colleagues understand that it's homelessness all over town. And again, Mr. Randall said we have people coming in town to come here. And we've got a lot of work to do to try to help those who are here and those who are coming. So again, thank you for your efforts and your crew that's working with you. God bless you.
Thank you.
I believe item number 3 was a memo and was scratched.
He's downstairs waiting on you.
No. I remember, Joseph number 4, you can go downstairs. Joseph number 4, sir. Item number 3 was supposed to be a presentation to Murray Holmes, but we got a memo on that. So I believe that motion was made by Mr. Miranda and Mr. Maniscalco.
We understand.
We understand? Okay, so we'll move on. We'll go to item number 4. Yes, ma'am. All right, motion
Motion to remove number 3, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Miranda has moved it, and Mr. Setro has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item number 4, Mr. Vieira is going down, and then I'll talk about a few changes on the agenda. Mr. Shelby, I mentioned, I don't know who you talked to. Maybe somehow they can get a speaker that's coming down in that second floor room so we can sometimes hear the speakers, because a lot of people are away from the actual lecture, and so we can get a clear sound from people in the room down there. So
I'm sorry, you asked me to do what, sir?
I think in the future we need to look at some technology downstairs in the second floor where they may have a mic coming down or something like that, so we can actually hear the folks, because a lot of times people are on the side, and the spokesperson who's speaking can't really hear them. So maybe we can amplify the sound in that room.
I'll ask about that. The concern, though, Mr. Chairman, is to be able to not pick up sounds from the people who are off. But I'll certainly
Let's
work
look and see what we can do.
will do that. Thank you.
Mr. Vieira.
Yes, sir. We have here Mr. Joe Greco, and before we have a video that we're going to play for Joe. If we could begin with that, please. Well, let's give Joe Greco a hand. We're here, Joe, today is his last day, September 23rd, as the president of Tampa Firefighters, Local 754. And Joe wanted to say some words, and I said, you're not just going to get away with saying some words. We're going to give this man, this emotional man right here, God bless him, a Tampa City Council commendation. And I want to just very briefly read from it. It says in relevant part, there is no greater or more vocal advocate for first responders than Joe Greco. His advocacy has resulted in historic investments for Tampa Fire Rescue. His time as president has been marked by a collaborative relationship with elected officials to improve the health, safety, and welfare of firefighters and promote public safety for all. Joe is a proud son of a police officer and father to a firefighter. He fights for every Tampa firefighter as if they were his own blood. Joe is sincere and always comes from the heart, always comes from the heart. And he has an everyday level of common sense that he got from his police officer mother and construction worker father that he passes on to his sons. They do not often make them like Joe Greco, a proud firefighter, a proud son of West Tampa, and servant to all of Tampa. So I'm going to let folks speak. I have nothing else to say other than what's written here. So, Mr. Chairman, if you want to hear the folks here, Mr. Greco, council members, go for it.
Why don't we hear from the folks down there first, Lewis?
Yes, sir.
How you doing? Andrew Carter, incoming president for Tampa Firefighters Local 754. Joe sent me this in case he was unable to do so. We all know Joe. He's a very emotional and passionate guy. He wants to say it was a sincere pleasure to serve the firefighters of Local 754 as both vice president and president. He also enjoyed meeting and building relationships with all of council as well as your constituents at the many events that we were at over the years. As you could see clearly through the video, it seemed as though it was almost every campaign. Thank you for your friendship, and hopefully it will continue for many years to come, as Joe remains on the job for one more year to finish out his tenure prior to retirement. So, thank you.
Thank you. Chief, if you'd like to say anything, ma'am.
Good morning, Chief Tripp, Tampa Fire Rescue. So, I've known Captain Greco for many, many years, but never actually dealt with him in the capacity I've dealt with him in the last 9 to 10 months. So I greatly thank him for his support. I wish you well in your retirement. And some of those fish you need to bring over to me, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Good luck and wish you well. Thank you.
Mr. Simon or Mrs. Portman, go ahead.
Good morning, Steve Simon, President of ATU Local 1464, and I would like to say congratulations. Come over here, man. We got to get this picture taken. It's been a pleasure working with you, you know, and thank you for some of the advice that you've given me in regards to the work that we've been doing together. It's been a pleasure. You know, I'm happy for you, you know, coming up on your retirement. Congratulations. God bless.
Darla, if you'd like.
Darla Portman, President Tampa PBA. I just want to tell you, Joe, you are a fighter. If there's anybody that I wanted to bring to a fight other than a police officer, it would be Joe Greco. He's got passion, he's got speed, he's just a fighter. And anytime we've ever needed anything, he's been there for us. When our officers have fallen in the line of duty, the fire department comes to back up the police officers like they always have. And Joe, you're going to be missed more than you ever know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And then if you want.
I'm going to try and compose myself for just 1 second. Council, I appreciate all the support. This council and the last, since I've been elected for the last 6 years, y'all have never not listened, always took in consideration what we've brought to the table. Staff for the city, not the previous staff, but this staff, has always given us a seat at the table. My personal friend, Louis Vieira, anyways, I appreciate everything y'all have done for public safety, citizens of Tampa. And although I won't be in an official capacity in front of council anymore, I got all your phone numbers. Love y'all. And now, Council.
Mr. Maskowski, recognized.
Thank you very much. You know, although the Firefighters Union is in good hands with Andrew Carter behind you, someone I've known for over 20 years, with his perfect firefighter mustache, I got to throw that in there. He's got some big, big shoes to fill. You know, Captain Greco, you can be very intimidating. You're very intense, but you're very passionate. You're very loving. You're very caring. You care about your firefighters. You care about their well-being. You care about the city. You care about the safety. You've called me many times. We've had many long conversations. You are, as they say, a fighter, not just a firefighter, but you fight for your people. You fight for this community. You're a good friend. You're a very passionate individual. I see when you put your heart into something, you go 100%, and I respect you tremendously, and you're going to be very, very much missed by a lot of people. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Goes.
Joe, thank you so much for all you've done, and we are eternally grateful. You found us all when we first filed to run for office, and you grabbed us and educated us about all the things that we needed to know, I think, before just about anybody else did. And so you're a great ambassador for firefighters and for the safety of the people in our community. And through you, we've been advocates for the same. I hope that we, most importantly, get to see you enjoy the well-deserved retirement. And I'm looking forward to seeing more pictures of fish and island scenes and things like that. So please post all the pictures and let us see how much you're enjoying it, because you definitely deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Titchell, you recognize.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Joe, last week when Councilman Vieira made this motion, I jokingly said, "What, for that troublemaker?" And you should have seen the look on Lewis's face. And I meant that sincerely. Joe, you are a troublemaker, but you're the type of troublemaker that I like. You have viable solutions to the problems at hand. You are the first person, you are the front line for the men and women of the fire department. Whenever there was a problem, You came to us with viable solutions to that problem. Joseph, I've come to you many, many times asking your opinion on how this council can help the men and women of the fire department. And you've given me straight, blunt answers, whether I wanted to hear them or not. Joseph, I respect you, but I know that you don't have an off switch. You're not going anywhere. So I look forward to your phone calls, my friend, and you have my personal phone number. Call me anytime you need me.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Dingfellow, you recognize?
Joe Greco, you and I share a lot of things, including being emotional. I think this is emotional for all of us. I haven't known you that long, probably 2.5, 3 years. When we met and the fire department or fire union decided you would endorse me a couple years ago, it was a big honor. It's still a big honor. And when I saw those pictures up there of us campaigning together, it brought back great memories. But the most the most poignant memory that my wife and I both have is Joe said, okay, we built a bunch of signs, we put out a bunch of signs, and then we decided to go walk some of the neighborhoods up there in Seminole Heights, and Joe said, well, I'm going to come walking with you. And little did I know what he meant by that when Lynn and I got out of the car, and next thing I know, I was like, where'd Joe go? And he took off running, to literally running. He doesn't walk neighborhoods. He was running the neighborhoods, door to door, knocking on doors and then running to the next one. And that's the way you lead your life. I can honestly say I've rarely met a man whose passion for helping people, is as large as yours, Joe. And I know you're not going far, and Andrew's going to do a great job and everything else, but we'll miss you on a day-to-day basis, so don't be a stranger.
Thank you, Councilman, and your wife is amazing.
Yes, she is. Thank you.
Randy, you recognize?
Thank you much, Joe. It's a pleasure to have known you for many, many years. And you haven't changed. You're still the infighter. But when you fight, you're not only fighting for the men and women of the fire department, you're fighting for the men and women and children and family members of the whole city, because you want to have a safe city, and you're representing the individuals who can do that. So we understand that, and we appreciate everything. And why is he leaving now? I had a few minutes conversation with Joseph earlier this morning, and what he told me is what he is. And he said this, and it wasn't said for me to say this publicly, but he told me that he's leaving now because he doesn't want to leave the fire department in the middle of a negotiating period with the city, and that he would never do something halfway and walk away and let Andrew Carter finish it when Andrew Carter didn't start the whole thing, although he's involved in it. He wasn't the face of the fire department at that time. So that tells you what kind of an honorable individual he is, that he wasn't willing to put something halfway that he couldn't finish, so that he would spend the last 11 months as a firefighter and let the capable hands of Andrew Carter finish the whole negotiation from start to finish. So that tells you the individual that he is, and he's not doing it for glory or for honor. He's doing it because that was his duty that he got sworn into doing when he took not only a firefighter, but the head of the union, 754. And I predict in the years to come, somewhere along the line, you're going to see another Greco seeking office. And I predict it'll be Joe Greco. Thank you very much, Joe, for what you've done, and I appreciate it very much for you and your whole family.
Charlie, thank you for your friendship over the years, sir. Is council done? Oh, sorry, Chairman.
Well, sometimes people take passion for a person being angry or upset. But you like me, Joe. You're passionate about what you do. You're passionate about the causes. It's not anger. It's just that you're fighting for the issue that's right for the people or for a purpose. You make sure people feel the pain to understand what the pain is like. You took Mr. Vieira and Mr. Citro on that journey, and we found out about ourselves, what our capabilities are. I think Mr. Citro found some things out too. We all did.
Yes, sir.
Because of you. I had experienced it because I've been in a fire before. So to me, you know, it was an extra experience to get to know some other aspects of the fire department about equipment that I didn't know about, so I can understand. I always speak about experience. When you have the experience, you're able to tell others about the experience so they can understand it. And that's how things get moved, when people can talk about the experience. So I just want to say thank you for the friendship, and the folks of East Tampa, thank you. The folks of East Tampa, thank you, because now we have an extra medical services there. We need more, but you were the catalyst to tell me, and so I can know how to approach to get the needs for my community, for my district. So on behalf of the citizens of East Tampa and my district, District 5, we say thank you. And continue to serve, which I know you will. God bless you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman. I just want to finish. I don't know, anybody left? Thank you. I'd like to just tell, if the 754 members are listening now that I've composed myself, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve you. You've always supported whatever efforts I had, and I'm sorry for standing too close to the mic. It's honestly been an honor. I have met so many great people. I've made so many friendships, although it's been very time-consuming. I've loved every minute of it, but it's time, and I really like to thank the guy who's behind me right here, Andrew, for supporting the efforts that I've endeavored upon in the last couple years, because they've been monstrous and very time-consuming. Andrew's been amazing. This union is in great hands with Andrew, so thank you very much. Everybody who said something, Lewis, for putting that collage, Jesus, mother, brother, Chief, and all the other union presidents. I see Steve back there. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vieira. All right. Gentlemen, we got some extra items that were approached to me by staff. We have 2 walk-on items that I'm going to take before we get into other staff reports for the workshop for today. I'm going to let Mr. Johnson, I think he has maybe 5 or 7-minute presentation that they had asked for at the last meeting to come back. So I'm going to have him come first, and then the administration will come and reference the walk-on item, reference the crime-free multi-housing bill. I want to make sure that we understand the time frame. I understand we have a lot of speakers that are waiting, and we have speakers that may be downstairs. So I'm not going to put a restraint on time at this time, but I will say that when it's time for comments for council members, I will put us on the timer and probably go 2 rounds, and then we bring things in for a landing, because I know this is going to be a hot, long item. I know we have another item, reference to fire department, that Chief Tripp will be talking about, reference to fire department. Had calls on that too, so we may have folks on that. So I want to make sure we move the agenda fast as we can. We get to our points and make the decisions we need to make for the citizens of Tampa and for this council. So without further ado, I'll bring on Mr. Johnson for the walk-on file number B2022-2. Yes, ma'am. Go away. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Morning, Council.
Morning.
Apologies for my slight tardiness. Are we ready?
We're ready, sir.
All right. So after our last presentation, Chairman Goose, you recommended that the CBFC meet with the CFO as it pertains to the breakdown of other services and charges. We met with the budget officer, Mike Perry, on September 13th around 10 a.m. In meeting with Mr. Perry during this meeting, we didn't really receive a breakdown of the areas. However, The budget officer did enlighten us on how the budget is constructed. It's guided by the state's Uniform Accounting System Manual Guidelines. So he gave us a little insight as to how the budget is constructed and why that category of other services and charges is there. But we did discuss with the budget officer that we need to be a little more transparent with other services and charges. So the committee and the budget office will work together over the next year or so, or quarters, the next quarters as we meet with them, to basically identify areas of how to be more transparent with other services and charges. So we do thank Mr. Perry for taking time and explaining how the budget is constructed underneath being guided by the Uniform Accounting System Manual, the state's manual. So with that, what I want to do is we're going to go into our revised recommendations after meeting with the budget office. So again, I'm going to go ahead and I'll introduce myself. You know, everybody know I'm Joe Johnson. I'm chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee, appointed by yourself, Mr. Chairman. This is my third year on the committee, and I represent District 5. I'm going to recognize the Vice Chair, Craig Newman. This is also his third year, and his second as Vice Chair. He was appointed by Councilman Carlson. He represents District 4. We're going to go ahead and recognize Nicholas Glover, who is appointed by Joe Citro, representing District 1. We'll recognize Andy Scaglione, appointed by Councilman Miranda, representing District 2. We'll go ahead and recognize Stephanie Pointer. She was appointed by Councilman Dean Felder, representing District 3. Michael Fluno, appointed by Councilman Maniscalco, representing District 6. And also Joe Farrell, appointed by Councilman Vieira, representing District 7. So if we go over to page 4, these are our previous recommendations. Again, after meeting with the budget office and having a better understanding, it helped us go back and revise our numbers and really keen in or hone in on area specific instead of going so broad. So I'm going to go ahead and let's jump down to page number 5. All right, so here are our revised committee recommendations. So on page number 5, you see Affordable Housing Initiative. As a committee, we talked about, after hearing the CFO presentation on the 13th and speaking with the budget office, you know, of that $16 million that we discussed, we understood that a certain number had to go back, but we were able to identify some areas, and the budget officer actually came back to us with, you know, something that's satisfactory, I think, for council, for yourself, Mr. Chairman, the council as a whole, as pertains to affordable housing, also as pertains to staffing. So, as a committee, we looked at land acquisition. There's going to be approximately, there's $16.1 million of ARPA money that is available to use now. In 2022, there's additional funds that's coming on. I don't want to, you know, go ahead of myself and speak out of term, but there's additional funds that will be coming on, so that's going to make it a real, there's a decent amount of funds that's going to be there for affordable housing. But with that money, the question is that came over was, what do we do with it? We have no land, we have no dirt. The city doesn't own a lot of dirt. So with that, we said, let's put aside some funds to acquire land. And in acquiring land, we want to have the city, provide the city with development options for affordable housing. So there's funds, but there's no place to build right now affordable housing. So the city, we recommend that council and the administration work together to identify areas where we can purchase land, where the city can purchase land. We also want to recommend that the City of Tampa Planning and Development Department look to expand on its work in partnership with Hillsborough County to identify more affordable housing land options. Again, goes back to land acquisition. Tampa is a part of Hillsborough County, so I think that, and I'm sure Ms. Post and her team are working with the county on some programs, but we feel that maybe there's some areas of opportunity to expand on that. So that's a recommendation from the committee. All affordable housing, as pertains to the affordable housing funds, we discussed that before any dollar amount being allocated to a developer or to whoever, the city council have the final say as it pertains, or final approval as it pertains to those funds being dispersed. Let's go ahead and go to page number 6. Housing Department. Again, met with the CBO, and he brought it to our attention. Look, you know what? The Housing Department is where it is, and with it, being under, Carol Post, their staffing levels will increase, okay? And with those staffing levels, we looked at, a housing community relations manager. Now, this position, the way we see this position, it'll liaison between neighborhood and community affairs and the housing department to ensure community residents are aware of various community assistance programs such as the Down Payment Assistance Program, SHIP, Home, USDA Rental and Home Ownership, and the NSP programs. Now, you're probably asking, SHIP, what is SHIP? That's the State Housing Initiative Partnership. Okay, the USDA Rural Housing Service. There's various programs out there that individuals just don't know about. And again, back on the second, Councilman Dean Felder, he did the math, $5.5 million. That's 183 families. Well, with the amount of money that's going to be coming in through ARPA and the state and federal grants that's out there, well, that's an opportunity for families to get out of those rental cycles and get into home ownership. So there's a bunch of programs out here that's guided by the state and provided by the state that people just don't know about. And I think that with the impact of affordable housing that's going on, not just in Tampa, but nationwide, we have an opportunity as a city to inform and educate these individuals on how to become home ownership and guide them through the programs, especially with these funds that will be available. Let's go ahead and go to page number 7. You heard it last year, you heard it this year, you hear it again. Dare to Dream Community Initiative. We look to allocate a percentage of the ARPA funds to increase funding for first-time home buyers, for the first-time home buyer assistance program, excuse me. Again, this can assist more families with down payment assistance, right? Goes back to the statement of Councilman Dean Felder. Neighborhood and community affairs look to partner with housing department to create programs that can inform and educate community residents about the affordable housing and first-time home buyer assistance program. And we also look to, with the home buyer assistance program, right now there's a $250,000 cap. We look to see how, if it's possible, to move it from $250,000 to $350,000. Why? Because given the current housing situation, $250,000, you're not going to be able to find a house for $250,000 in the city. You're not going to be able to find a house for $250,000 in the county. So we need to look at options to, again, move this money the right way. Page number 8. Again, as you see, Dare to Dream, Inform and Educate. I'll go ahead and go to page number 9. So our final initiative moving forward, as a committee, we look to meet, we'll continue to meet with both the general fund and enterprise departments on a quarterly basis. And as we meet with these departments on a quarterly basis, we will also keep council informed as to the healthiness of the departmental budgets. We have a meeting, we're working on a meeting date with the budget office to sit down and come up with the parameters and expectations of what the departments will need to bring to these meetings, these quarterly meetings. So again, I want to just kind of just want to say, you know, we want to thank Mike Perry. I know Mike Perry, over the past 2 years, it's been pretty rough, you know, meeting with the Budget and Finance Committee. We've been, you know, pretty strong, and he's probably taken a bit of a beating, but I do want to recognize, you know, Mr. Perry has a wealth of knowledge as it pertains to the budget, and I think that his department, the CFO and the city, definitely should be thankful to have him. He leads that department very well, and we enjoy working with him. And I just want to recognize him because I know he takes a beating, you know, from the committee, from myself, and just, you know, I think I just wanted to take this time to say thank you to him and recognize him to council. So with that, I'll go ahead and close it out. If anyone has any comments or questions, again, I'll be more than happy to, you know, take them.
Any comments from council? Any comments? Well, again, Mr. Johnson, thank you and the committee for your work. It takes a lot of effort to be a volunteer to bring information to this council. So again, we applaud your work, and again, always recognizing staff for the work they do. They're appreciative of that, and I sure know Mike is appreciative that you're giving him a shout out, a reference to the work he's doing over there. So thank you, and God bless you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right, walk on item number E202148, Chief Delgado. And again, council, we will hear from the chief, and then we'll take comment on that item. And from that point, we will let council members chime in on the information from the public and from the chief. I see Chief Bennett on the line as well. Morning, sir.
Morning, Chairman John Bennett, Chief of Staff. Before Chief Delgado gets into the walk-on, and I appreciate council's ability to accommodate this on a busy workshop, I just want to kind of mention a few things before we get into the minutia of tactics that try and keep people housed and, of course, keep people safe. You know, as we know, between council and the administration, and in the spirit of always being in a situation of continuous improvement, housing is one of the most basic needs according to our Maslow theory of personal hierarchies, but so is a sense of personal safety. There are literally hundreds of criminogenic theories and typologies out there of why people commit serious crime. But the one common denominator for us is the social disorder that any of those outcomes can affect many, including those that are indirectly and directly impacted. We also know that the mayor, this administration, and you, council, are trying to make our community more resilient every day. Strategic focus of workforce development, which involves education and training, housing affordability, as we just talked about, mobility as a service, all lead to an individual's family and ultimately a community's resilience as outlined in the Tampa Resilient Roadmap. So our administration update today, which we appreciate council recognizing and honoring that, is not solely about this program. It's more about making our community more resilient so everyone can thrive and to be the best version of themselves. And with that, I'll give it over to Chief Delgado, and we're around to answer any questions from council or the public. Thank you.
Go ahead, Chief. Thank you. Thank you, Chief Bennett, and again, good morning, council. Ruben Delgado, Acting Chief, and I appreciate the time you guys set aside today to discuss this crime-free housing program that the Tampa Police Department has. And I just want to level set the program a little bit, just kind of give you an understanding of when it started, some of the transitions that we've been through over the years with this program, explain why it's important to the city that we have this type of program, and then again be available to answer some of the questions if I leave some stuff off. So the crime-free program in Tampa started back in 2013 when we had a certain area of the city, it was Grid 33, which is up by the river in the northeast part of the city, that was highly densely populated with apartment complex, and we were seeing a huge amount of crime happening within that apartment complex. That's what led to us searching for some sort of program that could help the victims of those apartment complexes live in peace and have the same quality of life as you or me or anybody else deserves to live in. The purpose of that program was based on a couple things. It's based off of the National Program of Crime-Free Housing, and it focuses on three things. One's the education of the program itself to kind of bring awareness of it. And again, our goal was to reduce the crime within those apartment complexes, working with the apartment complex managers and giving everybody that lived there, the thousands of residents in there, the opportunity to have the same quality of life as everybody else. The second part of that was a crime prevention practices section, which is what we call in the law enforcement world is the CEPTED review, and I know Chairman Goods is exactly what that is, but I'll explain it. It's called crime prevention through environmental security measures and safety measures, whether that's lighting or that's the locks that they have on their doors, how they keep their bushes and their hedges, the fencing, several things that they can do to deter criminal activity and to keep their apartment complexes naturally safe, and then target hardening some of the doors and windows to prevent crime. So we go through that with them. We give them some recommendations on how to make their properties safer, and then we worked with them throughout this program to ensure that they were trying to get all of this stuff completed. And then the other part of this is no different than we do with any other initiatives. It's enhancing our relationships that we had with apartment managers, making sure that we were working hand in hand with them to reduce crime. So like any initiative that we have, this program from 2013 up until last week has undergone several evaluations, several modifications over the years, and I don't want to take away from the focus of the overarching theme of this program, and that's to keep providing the same quality of life for these residents of the apartment complexes and reduce the number of victims that would otherwise be subject to criminal activity on apartment complexes if the initiative wasn't there. So some of the changes worth noting, and I'll go through them. I don't want to take a whole lot of time on it, but I'll run through some of the changes that are worth talking about. In 2015, we reviewed the program again based off a few court rulings that came out other parts of the country, and we as a city at that time, and we didn't do it in 13, and we decided to maintain the position that not to develop that city ordinance, that a lot of cities that went to the national program had a city ordinance that would almost mandate apartment complexes or mandate some things if once a notice of arrest was given. We decided not to do that. We made ours completely voluntary by the apartment complexes. It was been voluntary since the beginning, and it remains 100% voluntary today. They opt into being part of the program. In 2016, HUD issued some guidances against those ordinances. We again looked at what HUD's recommendations were for HUD properties and made sure that we were still following the HUD guidelines, and there was nothing in our policies that were violating any of that. 2018, we hand-delivered a letter drafted by our legal advisor to all the apartment complexes at the time that were participating in our crime reduction program. And I'll just read a little snippet of I have the thing, but I'll read a snippet of it, that it basically said, by providing arrest information to the program participants, Tampa Police Department is making no recommendation on whether landlords should rent to a prospective tenant or evict current tenants. Rather, an arrest information is intended as one aspect of a decision made by landlords on a case-by-case basis. Landlords should consider, first of all, that an arrest by itself is no proof that an officer arrested committed the charge. And we wanted to stress that just so there was no indication that we were trying to influence any decision the apartments make. They make any decision on screening and evictions 100% a management decision based on information given to them. In 2019 is where we made some more changes to the program, and again, it's just a process of evaluating what we have. We do it with all of our programs, and in 2019 we made some additional programs that we did away with what they called a goal list, which was an offender awareness list, and it was basically a database. And if you read the paper read the article that was in the paper, it states its goal list. It's something that we don't populate. It made an assumption that we do. There is no goal, there is no offender awareness list. We clarified the forms and underscored that the participation of the program was 100% voluntary by the apartment complexes. There's a lease addendum that the national program has. In 2019, we stopped even taking part of using that lease addendum, so there's no more lease addendum attached to any of the apartment complexes leases that they negotiate with their tenants. That doesn't exist. And then we clarified, again, with the apartment complex that we had no part in any screening services or eviction processes, and that decision was solely based on the apartment's decision, based on other factors that were going on with the tenants. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware, and I think you are, but I want to, so no new property has been added since 2018. After we made these adjustments, and we were still doing some changes in 19, we didn't add any more properties. And then, of course, COVID hit shortly after, and so the apartment complex number has stayed the same over the course of the last 2 years, 2.5 years, and we haven't added any to it other than just maintaining the ones that we have and continuing to stay in contact with them. So I know everybody's probably read the article, and we actually sat down with the editor before the article and after the article, and there was a lot of things in the article that were clearly one-sided. Without getting into the details of that, I just want to, after the article was written, we immediately had conversations with Chairman Goods and Representative Hart, and I want to thank Chairman Goods and Representative Hart for that, because we had some productive conversations about what was in the article. We had some good meetings, and during those meetings and during those takeaways, I just want to clarify a couple things that I did right away after getting some of the information, kind of explaining the position that we were in. So we clarified some language in the program, and we added some more oversight to the program, and I'll go over some. So what we did immediately is we identified specific felony crimes and felony drug arrests that would be in the framework of what crimes would be notified to the apartment complexes. And when I say the felonies, I'm talking the violent felonies, robberies, murders, aggravated battery. So if somebody's on the property and they're beating somebody with a pipe or they're shooting at them, those types of arrests are the ones that we would notify the landlords that arrests were made on the property. Additional oversight that I added was, behind me is Captain Brian Hill. He'll speak here in a second. So there's another layer where Captain Hill has to physically get the information from the officers. There's 3 officers that oversee the program in each of our 3 districts. Before any notification goes out to a landlord, Captain Hill is going to personally review it, make sure it falls within the new guideline of the policy, sign off on it, and deliver it to the apartment complex. And then, of course, we limit it to on property only. So the offenses and the HUD guidelines, and I think you might hear it say, the HUD guideline is on or near the property, which is how that currently writes. We've taken ours and kind of made it to it just has to be on property. So that if the crime doesn't happen on the property, the notice of arrest does not go to one of the landlords. So I'll finish up on a couple things, but before I do, I just want to have Captain Hill step up and talk about the program as it exists today, some of the things that he's working on and what he's doing, and then I'll come back up here in a minute and finish off. Brian?
Good morning, Council. For the record, Brian Hill, Captain Brian Hill, sorry. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the current state of the program and how we're going to operate moving forward. Currently, right now, we have 42 properties. Those 42 properties are throughout the city, South Tampa, East Tampa, West Tampa, North Tampa. Out of those 42 properties, kind of give you an idea of what a lay, per district, per council district. As you can see, I have this map that's indicated on the screen. Council District 4, we have 3. Council District 5, we have 27. Council District 6, we have 5. Council District 7, we have, Council District 7, we have 7. So that gives us a total of 42 that are throughout the city. Some are public, some are private. There's a mixture of both. Over the last year, since January 1, we've provided these properties with a total of 24 notice of arrest. One of the assessments that we went back and did to kind of see where we were, we noted within those 24, there were some NOAs issued, notice of arrest issued that probably shouldn't have been, that kind of outlined misdemeanors, which is against our policy. So with that being said, the extra oversight added with myself being personally responsible for taking each one of those notice of arrests moving forward and properly signing them off on them to make sure that they do meet their, have to deal with violent crime, gang activity, or felony drug arrest. Once that crime-free officers, like the chief stated, we have 3 throughout the department, 1 in each district, and I oversee their daily operations. So once they provide that document to me, I'll go over it, make sure it meets our criteria. If it does meet our criteria, I'll sign off on it, give it back to them. It will be electronically delivered to the property managers via email to ensure them that they are getting their notice of arrest, the proper notice of arrest. So that was the extra oversight that we added. Just to kind of give an indication on how the program has helped us over the years, with crime-free properties, there was a 37.1% drop in crime. That could be violent crime, drug offenses, cover all the bases. So the program works. We just had some areas where we recognize that we messed up, and now moving forward, we're going to make sure that we no longer have those issues, and I'm going to be the first level of defense to make sure that doesn't happen. If I may, in closing, I just want to provide you a statement provided one of our property managers who could not be here and also wished to remain anonymous. And she's over one of our larger properties that we partnership with. As a property manager, one of my duties is to ensure all residents abide by our lease agreement, house rules, and addendums. Some of those rules were created to ensure the peaceful and quiet enjoyment of all residents, the property, and in compliance with Florida state statute. History of, then she goes into, talks about the facts that lead to the eviction process. She states that history of constant disturbances that had led to violence within the property, and eviction is only presented after multiple violations or if threatens the health and safety of other tenants surrounding. The crime-free program has only strengthened the cases that we have been already building. So just kind of reaffirm that we are not the sole and last and final person who determines if these people are evicted from properties. We have no dealings with that. Once we give the properties the notice of arrest, our hands are out of it. But our main issue and our main reasons for being involved with these properties in the partnership is to, again, to piggyback what Chief Delgado said, is to maintain and keep everybody safe in those communities, just as we will want in the communities that we live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So I just want to touch a couple more things here, and then I can answer any questions that you have. So again, I want to stress the importance of initiatives like this for the Tampa Police Department, where, you know, the goal of this entire program is to provide a safe neighborhood for the residents in those apartment complexes, just like we do with Neighborhood Watch in other parts of the city. Enjoy the same quality of life as you do in your neighborhoods as I do in mine. We often forget about the thousands of residents that live in these apartment complexes that just want to have a normal life. They want to have their kids come out and play at night. And sometimes they can't do that. Sometimes when the person next door is dealing drugs out of the house or they're robbing people, that quality of life for them goes away, and they live in fear, and they live in their house. I know, you know, I've seen it driving around in patrol years ago. Chairman Goods, I know you've seen it. Driving around when you used to work for us for 30 years. So, and it's real. And the reality is there's violent people that live in this city, and they do violent things. And this is just another program that the city does and the police department does to try to keep the citizens safe. I don't have to tell you that there's a rise in violent crime. There's about a 30% rise that's going on. It's a national rise. But in Tampa, we see it and we feel it. Our officers are out there every day trying to make this city safe. It's initiatives like this, it's partnerships like this with communities and apartment complexes that will continue to keep this city one of the safest cities in the country. Have we made mistakes in the past? Of course we did, right? Did we give notice of arrest of stuff that may or may not have qualified? Yeah, we did. But that's going to happen in anything. I have officers that write tickets, mistakenly give tickets to people that we correct. So this is no different. You know, to say the program is bad based on a few mistakes is not something that is healthy for the safety of the citizens of the city. You know, again, our officers are out there every day working hard to keep them safe, and this is one of the tools of many that we use to keep the city safe. So now's not the time to turn this down. Now's not the time to pause this. I looked at it a week ago. I made those 3 immediate changes that we could at least get some more oversight on it. I'm going to continue to look at this program, and just like anything else, I'm going to continue to monitor it, continue to modify it. That's what's best in this city. We're always going to have those 1 or 2 situations that we know of that may or may not seem like that's the right thing to do because this program exists, and we sometimes get caught up in and the article makes a great leap between a notice of an arrest and eviction without, the assumption is the notice of arrest is causing the eviction, which isn't, that's not the case. But we do get caught up in these certain situations where a grandmother is struggling to have one of her kids that is out of control or just went down a wrong path and needs some guidance. You know, we try like hell to try to put programs in place with the Rich House and Bigs in Blue and the AMI, and I mean, there's programs out there that we try to get these kids. But like I said earlier, sometimes there are violent kids. There's 17-year-olds out there doing some violent stuff, and this is just another program to keep this city safe. So now's not the time. We're monitoring it every day. Again, I want to stress that we have as an agency have a responsibility to keep this city safe and to keep reducing crime and improving the quality of life. This type of program focuses on criminal behavior. That's it. That's what this program focuses on. When somebody violates or gets arrested for criminal behavior, this is all this is focusing on. So again, I know there's some things we want to talk about, and I will open it up for questions and discussions. And again, I'm looking forward to some input.
Chief, what I want to do, I hate to be a rude bender, but what I want to do, because I know we have a lot of people to speak on this side. So I don't want council to get bogged down to answering questions now, and then we got to come back and intertwine what some of the speakers might want to talk about. So I would rather, at this particular point, go ahead and open up for public comment, and that way council can jot down what people are saying, that way you have a chance to rebuke what some of the comments may be with the program.
Fair.
Is that fine with you, sir?
Fair.
All right, we'll open for public comment.
Mr. Chairman, if
Yes.
I can, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney, I just want to clarify, with regard to public comment, what is your intention to have a discussion? Is it limited to this item?
Like
or do you
I
want to take
said,
all of public?
I know you're a stickler, Marty, but I think with this situation and the attention it's got nationwide, I would prefer at this time that we open it up for public comment for this issue right here. That way, while the chief is here, we can address whatever issues and concerns, and then we can continue our public comment afterwards. But I just want to make sure we get this bite of the apple over with so we can move on as a city.
Okay, well,
Thank you, sir.
thank you. Thank you for that clarification, so that the people downstairs on the second floor or the people on the, who are pre-registered, this section now is solely on this issue.
Solely on this issue, sir.
Thank you, sir.
All right. We'll entertain the second floor, public comment on the workshop issue with the crime-free housing program only. Thank you, sir. Ms. Karen Peoples. If you'll step over to the mic, Ms. Peoples. Yes, ma'am. There you go.
Good morning.
State your name for the record, please.
My name is Karen Peoples, and I'm here this morning to speak on the issues before us. I want to say that the program for the apartments, which is in focus now, we do need to keep this program here in reference to this, but we also need to be very cautious in reference to having the residents evicted out about the program. When residents are evicted out of their unit, that means the whole entire family. We don't need to evict the whole entire family. We just need to do what it is that for the person who is doing the crime or anything in that matter. We have not had that on the property of Silver Oaks, but I do think that the program should stay in place of what's going on. And I do wish to get more involved with this program in reference to the residents.
Thank you, Ms. Peoples.
Thank you so very much.
Good morning, James Michael Shaw, Jr. I think you know me.
if the city council were to pass an ordinance that says that anyone who gets arrested can't live in the city anymore, neither can the rest of their family, that ordinance would be unconstitutional. You would never pass that ordinance in the first place. Your phones would be lit up by your constituents saying not to pass something that heavy-handed. But when you consider the cost of housing, it was implemented that way. If you cannot afford to purchase a home, if you can only afford to rent, and that's a lot of people, the arrest of a family member means you can't live in the city. You are effectively banished, exiled from the city. And you would never pass that ordinance, but it got passed. By the police, only about 17% of whom actually live in the city. They don't have to live under the heavy-handed regime that they've imposed on others. Now, this program was dreamed up in 1992 by a right-wing think tank in Arizona, and it was brought directly to our communities through the police without public input, without even public awareness. You are the city's legislative body, and I ask whether all of you knew about it or to the full extent of it. I don't think everyone did. And I'll tell you what you already know, which is that white people would never tolerate a regime like this for themselves. They would never live in a community where if their teenage son gets arrested for shoplifting, the whole family gets evicted. And they're not living under this regime. 91% of the people who were recommended for eviction were black in a city where black people are 24% of the city's population, but 91% of the people who were recommended for evictions. And it was designed that way. I'm showing you a couple of, if you look at the Elmo, I'm showing you a couple of slides that are straight from the a PowerPoint that was given to landlords where it says criminals are like weeds. The best way to kill them is to uproot them. Acting Chief Delgado said that evictions weren't actually encouraged, but that's hard to square with this slide that was shown to landlords, to uproot criminals by evicting them. And of course, evicting people doesn't kill them, it just relocates them. This one actually has a picture of a smiley face with a zipper that says, when denying an application, use your words carefully because a discrimination suit can be filed if you said too much. So the intention behind the program was to relocate the black population of a city outside of the city. That is what happened. Nobody likes crime, nobody wants criminals, but the way to fight crime is not to evict criminals' mothers. The way to fight crime is to work with the communities instead of imposing on them something that was dreamed up by a right-wing think tank. And lastly, while I'm standing here, if you'll indulge me for 10 seconds on item 8, I would say that it is unacceptable that there should be any fire stations in the city that don't have a ladies' restroom, and that we should recruit more heavily for minority communities. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'd just like to know where the slides came from.
Okay.
That's all.
Mr. Shaw.
National website.
But nationalist from whom?
Crime Free Organization.
Which is a subsidiary of who?
I think there's freestanding.
We can ask them.
Is it a governmental entity?
We're asking a little later on. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry about that. State your name, you can begin.
That's all right. Good morning. I'm Yvonne Jackson, and I'm also a chaplain for the community. The apartments that I live in is the apartment of River Oaks. I'll put it right on out there. We have been having a lot of shootings, a lot had been going on. And I am very grateful for the policing that has been out there in the community. We've got pretty close to some of the police officers in the community. One, Officer Baker, I would call her, I would let her know, we would let her know, because some of the residents there, they're afraid to call the police. But this is our community. I'm not afraid. I need to call. We need our policing there. We need them like, we need to breathe air. We need them. A lot of things been happening in that community. The elderly are afraid They are afraid. They are afraid. Some of them, when they hear the bullets, they go to falling on the floor, on the ground. But when we call the police, they come. They come to our aid. And we're asking you all to please do not rid of this, of them coming. Please do not rid us. Please, we need the help out there. Who else are we going to call on? We need the police all over the state, the nation, everywhere. But we need them there where we live in our community. We need the help. Please help us. Please do not avoid this. Please do not think that it's just, something that we don't need. We need it. We need it. So please, when the police come and they come and sit there, and I'm going to tell you something. It was one apartment that they were having so much violence in with the young people running in. Sometimes it would be 8, 9, 10 of them. I said, but since we called the police, they started to fade out. They started to fade out. So that lets me know that they see and they hear that we're not playing with this. So we really would appreciate it very much if you would have put it in consideration for us to continue to have the policing. Please, please put it in consideration. Please help us. If there's any way you need me to help in anywhere, any area, please let me know. This is my community. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor.
How many are down there?
I think about 12, I think. Good morning. Ma'am.
Good morning.
You just state your name for us.
Good morning. My name is Regranula Johnson, and I do live in River Oaks apartment where there has been gunshots during the daytime when our babies are out there, and it's terrible, as well as nighttime. And I am 66 years old, not afraid said, and I'm getting tired of hitting the floor. Because my mom and my dad always told us when we're in a situation like that, always trust and believe in the police officers. Go to them, call them. So I'm calling on y'all right now because we need y'all. We need you. Please, don't give up on us. God ain't give up on y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah. State your name for us, sir.
Good morning. I'm Johnny Johnson. I'm here with my co-founder, Patricia Brown. We are founders of Rise Up for Peace. We're a community against gun violence in our communities. Our organization is made up of families that lost their kids and loved ones to the senseless gun violence that's going on in the community. We come here this morning, first of all, to say everybody's welcome to come out and join us on our endeavor of trying to take back our community and rebuild our village. And what we're doing is a crime-free absolutely go hands in hand. Do y'all understand the murders and the tragedy that our community have experienced over the last couple of years? And I just want to read Rise Up for Peace vision statement and mission statement so that we all understand what's at stake. Human lives are at stake. Our vision is to build a bridge of compassion by embracing peaceful practices, reintroducing a community of brotherly and sisterly love as a sense of oneness. What impacts one, meaning you, impacts all, meaning me and my family. Our mission is to provide emotional support to families who have lost loved ones to senseless violence, uniting as one voice, one sound against violence with poise, strength, and dignity, and collectively thoughts by joining forces with public officials such as yourself, law enforcement, as I would like to thank Chief Delgado, Major Kelvin Johnson, have been out supporting on every walk. Every walk. We invited everyone to come out, other organizations, elected officials, any group, any organization come out. So I would like to make sure I say thank you to you guys and like-minded organizations who have the heart for hurting, helpless, and hopeless individuals who are seeking closure and committed to the sole purpose of ushering in peace, love, and unity back into our community. And we all can admit that our community is missing the love and peace that we all deserve. With any new endeavor, you're gonna have variables. So what I'm saying is, let's not erase a tool that can be used to help the violent crime that's in our community. Let's look at the variables. Chief already discussed that they have changed. He sat down with elected officials, such as Mr. Chairman Orlando Grew and Rep. Diane Hart. So let's just all come to the table, iron out the wrinkles so that we all can have a safe and peaceful environment, not just for me and my family, for everyone. Again, we lost our kids. You're standing up here looking at victims. We lost our kids. We need help in solving this. We lost a 4-year-old last week, or 2 weeks ago. So again, trying to save life shouldn't be an issue. We should come with solutions.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We appreciate your comments. Thank you for what you're doing.
Good morning.
Good morning. If you state your name for us, ma'am.
Lorraine Wright. I live in Robles Park Village. And I want to thank you for this opportunity, everyone in respectful places. Back then, before this crime, it was terrible. I am so pleased about the program that you're finally putting into process. I would love to work with this. From the fears of the fighting, the violence, the shootings, people dying, the dog fights, so many, even the drag racing, the convoys, the blocking the streets, you got to call the police, and thank God they were there each and every time. People would come out there sometime at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, truckloads want to fight. It just was very chaotic. It was just always in fear because you never knew if and when it would happen or what was coming next. You just stayed upset all the time. We didn't have the firecrackers. It just was so many things that were wrong. So when I was asked this question, is the Rose Park better for the crime prevention? I said yes. On a scale of 1 being worse than 10 being best, how would I score TPD? I said an 8, because there's always room for growth and advancement. No one gets a 10, okay, simply because someone will always be committing the crime, and thank God, TPD will be there. I remember the times when we had wall of people. You didn't even know who they were. You had no clue where they was coming from, and where I lived in, it was not okay. It will never be okay. But today, I feel a little proud about what I see with the children playing in the playgrounds. The grounds look so good. The sidewalks are not cluttered with people and dog manure and the foolishness. The trees are cut back. I thank God for TPD. I do thank God for TPD. For keeping me safe and keeping me happy. And anything, I truly support this crime-free because we must have the law. The law is good, man is bad. So who's gonna be accountable and take responsibility if no crime-free, if we don't get these felons where they should be? And the other part is about the evictions. I'm okay with that. There's nothing wrong with it, but let's don't tear up the families. We still have to nurture the ones that are left behind. Not only from the shooting, but we still got live children that still need education. We still need to be educated. Yeah, there's more that can and shall and will be done.
Thank you,
and I
ma'am.
would
We
love
appreciate
to
your
help.
comments.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Morning, but 'tis not. You know, you could hate on your own people by saying you see the contradictions, but understand the contradictions. It didn't just start. It's exploitation, that's what it is. It's exploitation. The nasty, stinking police, the nasty, stinking Tampa police that comes up here and talk about a volunteer program. Why don't the program be a mandatory program? Why? Because white people would not accept it. They know the black people don't have the resources to sue their asses, so they put it down against the African people. Don't make the program, don't be discriminatory. Make the program inclusive. Make it mandatory that every apartment complex, every MFing house in Tampa got to sign up that if somebody commit a crime, that their family get evicted. Where they do that at? In Azania, South Africa, if you don't know, where they banish African people, where we fought against apartheid and partially won against apartheid in certain ways, and they bring those nasty programs right here in America, right here in Tampa, Florida. Hey, look, it ain't about Orlando Ghouls. Orlando Ghouls ain't gonna do nothing for black people. It's about the white people sitting up there. It's about the other 6 city council representatives sitting up there that have to step up and do something to say, hey, this is unconstitutional, it's illegal, it's unethical, it's immoral, it's draconian, it's all those things. Man, you got people in here talking with a 2nd and 3rd grade education that the smart Tampa Police Department that got too much money, they got articles in the newspaper about them spending money at the strip club and everything else, taxpayers' money. The a-holes got too much money. That's why they're involved in evicting people, and if you arrest someone, man, it's crime all over the MFing world. It's crime all over the world. White people commit crime. White people commit crime. Why aren't white people affected by being evicted from where they reside if their kids or their grandkids or whatsoever commit a crime? Man, y'all black people, y'all got to stand up, and y'all got to be aware of what's going on. The problem ain't the conditions, the immediate conditions. The problem stems from 621 years of oppression, 621 years of slavery, and the reparations, the $621 million, that $1 trillion that the white folks owe us in reparations. It's a lack of resources. It's a lack of resources in our community. That's the problem. The police got too much money. The police got your money. The lady's talking about Robles Park and what it looked like and this and that and that. I'm from Robles Park. I'm from Robles Park. And what it looked like, they're about to tear down Robles Park and black people can't go back in there after they tear it down. Talk about that.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Thank you. State your name for us.
My name is Michelle Caldwell. I'm a property manager at one of the communities. So I've been around for the crime-free program for a while now, and I've actually seen the differences that it does as a property manager to the community, for the morale, for the applicants walking into the communities. It's not just about what it represents, but what it does in the background. They hold us responsible for everything that they have said, making the community a better look, the way that the crime has deducted from the moment that I started working there, to the point that applicants are flooding in because we are securing them, giving them a better home even though it is an affordable home. The fact that they're able to live there with peace, children to be able to play outside, there's so many things that have come good from this. And as far as the evictions, it's far from true that that's what happens. I've seen police officers come in and help hand in hand with minors who have done things and speak to them and try to lead them in a better path versus directly going to an eviction because of a crime. Evictions don't happen that way, unfortunately. Property managers are not able to just evict someone due to a crime. There is a lot of steps that come into that situation where we need to do our job correctly, and the police department, the crime-free, is just a resource, just like the fire department and anyone else who helps us. It's not something that we use to be able to get people out of their homes. And I do want to represent a lot of people who follow the program correctly. Not only does it make the community a better look, but it does make a community peaceful. I have residents who have been there for years who are grateful for the police, for the resources that have actually been provided to them in these homes because they don't have anywhere else to go because these are the homes that they can afford. So I just wanted to say that if this goes away, it's something that I feel like would hurt us because we no longer have something to fall back on for help. So it's not something that should go away. Thank you.
ma'am.
Quick question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I didn't let Mr. Citro ask the question.
Well,
Wait.
I thought you were going to, but the person had walked out.
No, so.
I was just curious if she was part of a private complex or a public one.
So I'm an affordable home, a tax credit community. So I'm actually right dead center to all of these districts that are involved.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Good morning. Yvette Lewis, President of the Hillsborough County NAACP. The NAACP want safe communities. Earlier, I heard Interim Chief Ruben Delgado say, don't take the program away. We've made a few mistakes. Wow. But yet you put whole families out because one person made a mistake. So that whole family gets punished. Okay, let's hold that. This is a clear violation of people's civil rights because they're not even afforded the opportunity for due process. This program allows Tampa Police Department to continue to over-police and overstep their authority when it comes to poor people and the African American community. The police will say, we don't tell them to evict the people, but yet you train them and you teach them how to evict the people. You have a training video that teaches them what to say and how to say it in order to get these people out. Again, the NAACP want safe communities. I would praise the police too if I was some of these people that was brought here today. Okay? Because I needed a ride. Nobody called me. Taxpayers' dollars. I am asking that you stop this program until we are assured that the people's rights are not being violated. Again, the NAACP wants safe communities. This is another biking while black. But let's call it something different. An ace is an ace, or a spade is a spade. We're renting while black in the city of Tampa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wow, that was a tough one to come after that one. Hello, my name is Jeanette Semide, and I'm here to represent not only managers, but I'm also a resident. I've been a property manager for over 20 years. My main role and goal is always to provide a safe, clean environment for families and their guests, and also for my staff. I understand the need for change due to political reasons, but we're taking a chance on safety. And I'm going to talk on both sides. Again, I'm not a homeowner, I'm also a renter, so I totally understand. It's not fair, you know, people are saying that whole families are being evicted due to, there's rules and regulations. There's leases, there's lease violations. Me personally, I've never evicted anyone just because an officer said you should evict them. Lease violations. Leases are terminated or families are evicted based on lease violations. It's not because of whatever criminal activity. It's based on the violations of their lease. It's clear, black and white. You cannot do X, Y, and Z while you're living here. Although I understand that evicting one person out of a household, it affects the whole household. And yes, that maybe needs to be worked on. Maybe it's not fair, but let's be realistic. If I say that your little cousin is not supposed to be in your house, chances are the family's gonna protect the little cousin and say, no, they're not there, they're not there. So now the rest of my community is in danger because this one family is protecting, you know, the one person that we don't want on the property. I do believe in second chance. We all deserve a second chance, but we do have to follow rules and regulations. Bottom line is, they're in there for a reason. Again, I've always used the communication with the police, not to evict, but like I said, just to help determine whether it's grounds for eviction or not. But again, the nature of the crime or where it was at, it's not the reason for eviction, it's lease violations. Lease violations. It's pretty much all that I have to say. The program works. It has worked for me. I actually come from New York. They had it out there. It worked out there. So yeah, I think we need to keep it on and maintain it. Maybe needs to be tweaked. Maybe not the whole family needs to be evicted, but at the end of the day, everyone needs to follow rules and regulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. State your name for us, please.
My name is Robin Lockett, and I'm here to speak on the crime prevention bill or crime prevention addendum. I have a lot to say about this, but not enough time. My concerns is that in regards to this bill, this addendum, where's the transparency? How was it created? Who's it affecting? And what the outcomes? And what is the success of this program? What's the success of it? Just listening to the different tenants, people that have spoken before me, it is clear to me that in regards to the transparency or the education around it, a lot of people don't know what's going on with it. You have tenants that's concerned about the safety of their properties or where they live, which is rightfully so. But that's not what this is about. This is about letters being sent to an apartment complex that is involved with this program until 2019, or I don't know when the verbiage of eviction was taken out, but prior to the changes and people being evicted, the culture was already created. So whether they changed the verbiage on it, those people that were already involved in that in the program, they already have the culture in their mind that these people should be evicted. Our organization has been working on evictions for 1.5 years now. It doesn't take anything for a landlord. Landlords have a whole lot of rights, and tenants don't. So it doesn't take a whole lot for a landlord to evict somebody, whether they want to go downtown and do it, or they go and tell a tenant that they're going to get evicted. 9 times out of 10 with our community, when there's an eviction, they get up and leave. So they don't go through a due process. They don't sit and figure out what their rights are and so forth. I have issues with the chief stating the program focus on criminal behavior. This is all the program focus on. Criminal behavior would be that that person's in jail. That family should not be evicted. If there's no changes to this, or the establishment is not want to do any changes to this, I think the city council should put a motion out for this program to be defunded. And defunded, the money that this program is taking up can be for the family, that mother that was concerned about her son or her daughter and couldn't get help because they didn't have an eviction. I mean, they didn't have a...
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Thank you.
Good morning, Connie Burton. We've seen all this before. This is nothing brand new. We've had the Weed and Seed program that was specifically attached to the Black community, where the worst of the worst was plucked out and given extensive prison time because we was going to revamp our communities. But the same cries and the same tears still exist in our community. We had one striking you out where people, again, was not given due process. And then on top of that, we have had a number of public housing that has been demolished for the sole purpose of gentrifying those neighborhoods, but no real money coming to solving the problems. So the mere mention of drugs being in around Channelside Drive, I recall hearing about a couple of months ago, that conversation was immediately shut down because you don't want that type of stigma established or connected to various apartment complexes inside of this city. But out of all of the apartment complexes in the city of Tampa, only 42 predominantly Black communities are attached to this program. So the question always is in my mind, where do poor white families live and how is their issues resolved? So we messed up is what I hear the police saying this morning, but I don't hear the corrective action that occurred to now families that are living inside of hotels paying almost $300-400 a week trying to get needed assistance. Nobody seemed to be caring about the downward spiral effect. You're not able to go out to one apartment complex in this city with any city authority to shut them down when we are talking about sewage running rampant down the street, bad plumbing, bad mold. You got lobbyists in Tallahassee that prevents you from doing that. But you come along with these type of programs talking about giving people a better quality of life. A better quality of life will start with people being able to live in dignity. And that's what you never want to concentrate on. So yes, people want to have a crime-free community, but a crime-free community would be first restoring dignity into housing instead of always having punitive punishment on Black people. I call for the Justice Department to come in here and do a thorough investigation because you're incapable and unwilling to take care of the needs of Black people in this city.
Thank you. You state your name for us, sir?
Hi, I am Sovereign Despot, holder and Decorus, King Johnny Bernard Booth. I want to explain something about all this that is going on, because a lot of people are confused about what's going on. Look, these projects and the hoods are being torn down so you can get better housing. You're sitting in hotels right now so that they can move you into better housing. I don't comprehend why you want to still stay violent and keep the violence going on. And why is other brown skinned and black people, why are you continuing on with the hate when I said cut the hate out? It's not a white and black thing anymore. And you don't want to comprehend what's going on with the police and or the sheriffs or anything else right now. Comprehend. As a law came into place in 2012, we are trying to get you better housing. I comprehend you don't have any money right now because we're trying to get you the true money out there. Patience is a virtue. You can't keep getting mad at the police and getting mad at the sheriffs and getting mad at the people trying to protect you and at other first responders trying to help you have a better quality of life. Yes, you want to stay in the hood and stay in the ghettos. Don't you know that comes from Hitler time? Don't you know that white people were staying in the hoods and the ghettos during that time? In order for things to get done correctly, yes, we're going to need for things to get cleared out. And look, they didn't mean the whole families. They meant for this to be done on an individual basis. The one committing the heinous miscreant. Look, we're coming out with a decriminalization list as to what is the true drugs coming out by the pharmaceutical companies and what is true crime. That means I don't want no murderer, I don't want no rape, I don't want no child molestation, I don't want no predators floating around. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. How many more speakers do we have down there? Yes, ma'am. You state your name?
Charnel Baker, Officer Charnel Baker.
You may speak. You ready?
I want to say, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. However, I have listened to everybody speak, and I must say that this is disheartening for me. I grew up in Orlando, Florida, in Mercy Drive Apartments, where, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first crime-free program that was adopted. I grew up there in complete violence. I could say that my childhood was cut short because I wasn't allowed to play outside because of the violence, the gang banging, the drugs, and everything else. I can remember a time when I was sleeping and we heard gunshots and I had to sleep on the floor. Honestly, no child should have to go through that. It was the crime-free program that they implemented, that they brought in, that made a difference in my life. To be able to sit and talk to officers, to watch officers clean up the street, is the reason why I wear this uniform proud and with no complaints. This program, Councilman Goose, you spoke about passion earlier. This program is my passion. Even the residents can speak on it. I hear them talking about poor people and African American. I'm both. And I'm standing here today. So the crime-free program is needed. Don't take away the program. It's my passion. Thank you.
Thank you, officer, for your service.
Thank you, sir.
How many more speakers do we have for the public comment?
Mr. Chair, could we ask who that was? There was somebody earlier that walked up behind the camera and then just came out again. I wonder, can we just find out who that was?
Probably somebody from the police department. Probably, I think it's from the PIO, photographer, one of those ladies.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Shall be recognized.
I spoke with Ms. Lucas, and she informs me that there are 2 people specifically on this item virtually.
Gotcha. Do any more speakers down on the second floor, sir?
There's no more speakers for this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. We'll go to the,
So is the Tampa Police Department taking pictures only of people that are on their side and not everybody else? Is that what's happening right now?
She was also doing it for the officer of the month.
I just don't agree with the city having propaganda campaigns.
duly noted, sir, duly noted. We'll go to the phone lines.
Good morning, sir. The first speaker we have is Justin McCarroll. If you can hear me, you have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Chairman, council, and members of the public. My name is Justin McCarroll. I'm a student advocate with the NYU Civil Rights Clinic, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the clinic. To begin, I would just like to say that I'm sympathetic to what's been said by the residents about the need for safety. But removal of this program does not mean that the police can no longer be present in those communities. The crime-free housing program has not been used as a tool for public safety, but rather as a tool for evicting Black residents from their homes. Since Mayor Castor initiated it as the city's chief of police in 2013, it's been used to push marginalized individuals and their families out of their homes and communities. The discriminatory impact of this program is clear, crystal clear. 90% of the people flagged by this program have been Black tenants. This is a statistic so staggering that I find it surprising our calls for a remedy have been met with any resistance at all. Mayor Castor recently announced that reforms will be made to the crime-free housing program, but making minor adjustments to the program's administration does nothing to address the harm that has already occurred because of this program and that will undoubtedly continue to occur. The damage has already been done. Police conducted training for landlords and property owners, actively encouraging them to adopt the very crime lease addendums which the mayor and the Tampa Bay Police have since admitted were wrong. These discriminatory lease provisions remain in place today, and they're being used against Black tenants, and they have not been addressed by Tampa. City Council cannot defer to the Tampa Bay Police Department in this matter. The program should be eliminated, but even striking the program in its entirety does little to remedy the ongoing harm because these discriminatory practices were firmly embedded into the Tampa Bay rental market and will continue with or without the active assistance of the Tampa Bay Police. Without a concerted effort to rectify the damage already done, these new changes amount to little more than symbolic action. Black renters have faced immense challenges overcoming discriminatory policies, not just in Tampa, but across the country for decades. This is history repeating itself. The mayor and Tampa Bay Police have acknowledged that the crime-free housing program has made some mistakes in the past, but they have yet to acknowledge the full extent of the harm. Admitting mistakes and actively taking steps necessary to remedy the real harm caused by those mistakes are very different things. Now, given the recent conversation around race in this country and Tampa's history in dealing with racial discrimination, particularly regarding housing discrimination, this is a real opportunity for the city of Tampa to finally do right by its Black residents. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker, Alejandra Ortiz, is no longer logged on. Therefore, that would conclude comments on this particular item.
All right, thank you. All right, gentlemen, we'll go round robin. Mr. Vieira, you're up first, sir. Battle spot.
And sir, are we entertaining questions or just statements and thoughts or either one?
This is your time, sir. Your 5 minutes, your time. We're only going to get 2 rounds of the apple, then we're going to bring it in for a landing.
The landing, I appreciate it, sir. You know, so much to say after that public comment. A lot of folks spoke with passion on different perspectives. I want to say for people that live in these affected communities, you know, the issue we're discussing here, in my opinion, is not on issues like defunding the police or anything like that. I've always been a strong opponent of that idea and whatnot. For me, this is a much more narrowly tailored issue. You know, since I first read the Tampa Bay Times article, I had great concerns on the program, made inquiries. I thanked the administration, including Chief Delgado, who's a fine gentleman, and many others, for speaking with me on it. I sought out individuals in the administration, in the community, et cetera, and ultimately I came down to the conclusion that, you take a look at the program where it's at right now, where it, in my opinion, as I'll discuss, I think it needs a lot more scrutiny, oversight, and a level of continued substantial change, in my opinion. But when you look at the last 8 years, in terms of where the program has been, it makes that scrutiny and that investigation necessary and even much more compelling. Put otherwise, when you take a look at the life of the program over the last 6 or 7 years, it has certainly helped a lot of folks, and there's things there that we heard about from the community, but it's also served for the 100 or so individuals who were affected negatively based upon misdemeanors, for the several dozen folks who were affected negatively after having arrests that were dismissed. For the couple of folks, I think there were only 2 who were affected with driving suspensions and driving infractions. It served to worsen existing social inequalities and to put police officers in effect in a system where they're playing a role that I think goes contrary. In effect, they're playing a pardon role in a long process where I don't think they should necessarily be involved in. In an era when we talk about things like inequality, social injustice, mass incarceration, et cetera, a program like this is very, very, very relevant to talk about. Do we need to go after crime? Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, in hearing a lot of the folks in the community talk today, we need to engage on that. A lot of times when you talk about anti-crime programs, things don't necessarily go one way or the other. There's a lot of unintended consequences. There's a lot of gray. We're here to talk about the gray. For me, this basic program, whether how it existed 8 years ago, whether how it existed 6 months ago, how it existed today, rests on a foundation that is at the very least cracked. That foundation may very well exist for more violent crimes, for things like drug trafficking, but we all have to admit that that foundation is cracked. Why? Because it deals with, number one, arrests and allegations, not convictions. That's part of a cracked foundation. And number 2, it's vicarious liability, which is the act of one person in your household will affect all of the household to the cost of what? Housing, a potential part in an eviction. That's something that we have to express. To me, this program should not go forward on autopilot without strict scrutiny on the part of City Council. I'll talk about that. We need scrutiny. Chairman Goods, I saw your memo. I was in support of the sentiments expressed in the memo. Given the history of this program, which includes 100 people who were included for misdemeanors, dozens more whose charges were dropped, et cetera, we do need scrutiny. What I would suggest and what I envision in that regard is, at the very least, because again, City Council, we can make our opinions known, but there are certain things that we don't have that are binding. What can we do that's binding? Scrutiny, which would include a report back to us within 90 days, 6 months after that, and at the very least, again, to the extent the program goes forward on a yearly basis, we need continued serious dialogue with stakeholders in a manner that is not reactive, but proactive. And why is that? Because of the history of the program. And by history, I don't mean 1980, I mean 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, with things that wound up having some detrimental effects. We need to also say that things like this will never happen again. We've said that before, and yet we're here with this. This, to me, is a program that when it started was bad policy with, and may I have one more minute, Mr. Chair? Thank you, sir. With unintended consequences. People who say that the city started this program with bad intent, I respectfully disagree. This has a lot of programs that mean well, have unintended consequences, and we have to look in a very, very serious way whenever it comes to these unintended consequences. We can fight crime while being made aware of the unintended consequences of programs with the capacity to stop, look at that program, and see how it can be made better, as in talking with stakeholders, taking a look at the unintended consequences, and either seeing if we can mitigate the unintended consequences or we have to repeal and replace, whichever way it goes. It's part of a dialogue that we have to have. Again, when I read the Tampa Bay Times article and talked to folks, et cetera, it was something that very much so disturbed me. For me, this is not an issue on whether or not we are in favor of public safety or in support of law enforcement officers. Anyone who would say that I am against public safety or don't support law enforcement officers might as well say that I'm bald. To me, this is about an issue of policy and how we go towards an effective fight against crime and standing with those folks who came here to speak today from these neighborhoods. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Madam Scout, you recognize, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. You know, there's the question on a job application, for example, where you're asked, have you ever been arrested? But there's a difference between have you ever been arrested and have you ever been convicted of a crime. So as Councilman Vieira mentioned, you know, we've had arrests in situations, but the charges may have been dropped. But the fact is there was an arrest, and that arrest is enough of a penalty that's caused the damage. We talk about the homeless situation. We talk about the need for affordable housing, yet we have a policy in place that when someone, one person, one member of a family gets in trouble, an entire family is punished, and therefore they're evicted. And we've seen that because that is, I think it's a terrible policy to punish everybody for the mistake of one person. I think it's way too out there. I know we want to fight crime. We want to reduce the numbers in crime. I understand that, you know, there were maybe good intentions for this program, but look at the effects of it. Look at how many people are affected by this. Perhaps the situation was solved for the neighbors or the apartment complex or whatever, but an entire family in many cases, entire families have been affected by this, by the policies in place, and those families have been displaced. As we see a housing crisis already as it is, we're punishing people that should not be punished, but they have become collateral damage due to these policies. I understand that there have been, may have been discussion of suspending this, at least temporarily, to reevaluate things. I understand that the mayor has proposed different changes, but at the end of the day, the policy is not good. I mean, I'd rather say the policy is not perfect. There are many mistakes, but these mistakes have had dire consequences for a lot of people. Thank you.
Mr. Carlson, you recognize.
Yes, sir. Thank you. First of all, I want to say, similar to my colleagues, you know, I support the men and women our officers in uniform, and also support public safety. We need public safety in our community, and people in Tampa remember a time when there wasn't public safety as there is now. But for the hardworking men and women who wear uniform, they don't set policies. The mayor's office, chief, and city council set policies, and so whatever I or we may say about policies, that is our role, not any criticism of the hardworking men and women of the police force. I think there are many problems with this program. The Times and Creative Loafing and others have outlined them in great detail, and the public can read it. But there are a couple that I want to highlight in particular. Number one is that innocent people were punished. It's not fair to punish innocent people. And whatever we say about what the intent of the program was, the fact is that if one person, even a child, committed any kind of crime in a household, the entire family was evicted. And I think that the city should not have a policy that causes innocent people to be evicted from their homes. Second, I wonder, what is the effectiveness of kicking people out of their homes, even if they've committed a misdemeanor or something like that? I totally agree with preventing crime, but the question is, where did the people go? You know, I'm a data person. I haven't been presented any data, and maybe we should have a whole workshop on the data for this, because you know, the way you set your model and the way you look at the data affects what this means. Where did the people go? Does that mean that if they move from one neighborhood, did your survey just look at crime within a certain radius, and then if they move to another neighborhood, did crime go up in that neighborhood, or did they move outside the city limits, so now the crime is in the county? And we need to look at that carefully. Several folks have talked about how the violent crime rate has gone up in Tampa. Is it because that now people with misdemeanors don't have a place to live? Have we kicked people instead of addressing the issues directly? We've not only hurt the lives we've hurt the lives of their entire families, and we've hurt innocent people for things that they didn't do. Third, the PowerPoint, which has been listed in the media, I'm told came through public records. It was incredibly offensive. I mean, it's the kind of thing that is used by the worst regimes in countries around the world, and we cannot have communication like that in and around our city. It's horrible that anyone would have said those things, and whether the PowerPoint was used regularly or not, the messaging is important. Was any of that messaging used? I appreciate the changes that were made in 2019. This administration changed the policies of the past, and there were a lot of problems in policies in the past that we've talked about before. If you string these together, there's lots of problems. But I think this program should end. I think we should absolutely end it, and we need to come up with other solutions. And this needs to be done by ordinance, not by a program or executive order. I agree with the Times editorial that we need in-depth review. We need to look at real data and understand whether this really does make a difference or not. And we need to at least get annual updates. And I have a motion I can make later if you all want. But I have one last question. Chief Delgado, could you please tell us, several folks in the community have alleged that the TPD or the city picked up people in neighborhoods this morning and brought them to city council to speak, and then we just saw the photographer taking pictures only of the people who apparently agreed with this policy. Was there a program by the city or TPD to try to sway city council today as to the outcome of this?
No, sir, and I'm not sure what you're with the driving. I don't know, but I can tell you we're not trying to sway anything. They had people that were passionate and wanted to give their opinion. And as far as the picture thing, I think that might have been me walking back here, but we were taking pictures of the Officer of the Month as well. So
anyway, I think others will be asking questions about that, but it's just something that we should look at. Thank you.
Mr. Citro, you recognize.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I've got some questions about this, and I'm trying to figure out from the top down how this program came about, and I'm wondering why representatives from HUD and Tampa Housing Authority aren't here.
Mr. Moore was asked to be here. I had lunch, breakfast, coffee with him yesterday morning. I asked him, but we went so long, so he probably had other things to do. But he was asked to be here, sir. And I think he was registered.
Mr. Chair, and I thank you for that, and that's all well said and done. But again, some answers should come from the top down.
I agree.
This isn't just a Tampa Police Department issue. Yes, Tampa Police Department was there to assist assist in these procedures, but it all came from HUD down to Tampa Housing Authority and private apartment owners who this program is running through. That would be wonderful. Do I think this program should stop? Not at this point in time. We have such a surge in gun violence. No, sir. Does this program need to be looked into? There's a big table. TPD, HUD, Tampa Housing Authority, NAACP, concerned citizens should all sit down and talk about this. Mr. Moore, if you're on, I'd like to get your input in this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
She's trying to bring him up? Okay.
Hello, City Council. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Mr. Moore. If you can state your name for the record, sir.
Apology. Leroy Moore, Tampa Housing Authority. I've been on since 9 o'clock. I was just waiting to be called. But thank you so much. Good morning again. And I just wanted to make it clear that I speak today solely on THA's eviction process and how it sometimes intersects with the city's crime crime-free housing program. We do not advocate or lobby on pending legislation or ordinance-making process, but we do educate on the impact of THA's programs and activities. Specifically today, I wanted it to be understood that our eviction process has existed long before the crime-free housing program. We provide over 14,000 units of subsidized housing in Tampa and Hillsborough County. Just 2 years ago, understand that we had 39,000 families sitting on a waiting list for housing, for this very housing. Today, with much purging and merging and cleanup of duplicate applications, we have about 7,000 families still waiting for their opportunity to be housed in places they can afford, live peacefully, and raise families. We have a public responsibility and a federal obligation to enforce the lease and ensure that our housing is safe and available to persons who will not threaten the welfare of others. More directly to the crime-free multi-housing program, understand that THA has never blindly filed eviction cases because of a TPD notice of criminal activity. This is but one of the tools that we use to ensure we know what's going on in our communities. THA's practice is to always give residents that are arrested or cited with criminal offenses due process. We expend great effort in doing our own due diligence, and our practice is to err on the side of the client, except where documentation is clear and the pattern of non-compliance is habitual. We are in the business of housing people and giving second chances, and often third and fourth chances. The partnership with TPD is most impactful to us in ensuring safety in our community. We have our own public safety department, which works on our sites to not just document criminal activities, but more importantly, understand to identify households that might need support, services, assistance, counseling, be it family counseling, child care assistance, educational support, employability skills, youth diversion programs, recreational, after-school services, case management, just a wide variety of social services that we offer to families in our communities through the second largest department in THA, our Resident Services Department. We have over 45 people in that one department who case manage our families, who support, transport, counsel, console, and navigate those families in distress toward programs and services to stabilize their families and promote greater self-sufficiency. Lease termination, when a family has an engagement with the criminal justice program, is the last resort, not the first or the second that we exercise. I wanted to make it very clear that the Housing Authority since 2018 has been part of this program. Once we exited the public housing program and converted our inventory to rental assistance demonstration, we were no longer covered under the federal, much stricter one strike and you're out policy, which actually existed here up until 2018 when we actually moved into the crime-free multi-housing program. And just to reiterate once again, this is one of the many tools that we use in order to determine what's going on with our families, and we always provide support. We provide counsel. We provide repayment agreements. We provide stipulations on leases. In most cases, families will have 3 or 4 infractions before we actually go to the point of eviction. Just wanted to make sure that the council was aware of that and be prepared to answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Moore, if you would stay on, I know we were going around the table, but since you chimed in, I'm going to let council members who may have questions and to reference to your establishment, what really goes on if they have any questions. So, Mr. Citro, you were already asking. You first. If you have any questions, Mr. Moore, sir.
Mr. Moore, I thank you very much for being here today, and I'm just going to answer ask you just one quick question. And you said that the Tampa Housing Authority goes by a policy that is less stricter, that is that has been created by HUD. Did I hear you correctly on that?
No. Just to repeat that, before 2018, all of our properties were considered public housing subsidized properties. Now they're considered Section 8 subsidized properties. Under the public housing rule, we were required to include in the lease what's called the one strike policy.
Okay,
One
okay,
strike-
Mr. Moore, I stand corrected. I thank you very much. When the leases are written, are they handed down, are they written by Tampa Housing Authority? And I
yes,
guess my point, Mr. Moore, and I'll let you answer that. Go ahead.
Yeah, our lease is a HUD lease that is modified by our attorney, and every family signs the same lease. The same.
So when a person is committed a crime or under your lease faces eviction, then your partnership begins with TPD.
No, our partnership began with TPD specifically under the crime-free program in 2018 when we applied to be part of that program because we were no longer under the one strike requirement. We saw it as a program that actually primarily gave us, TPD's counsel to our public safety staff to literally walk the site, survey the site, do an inspection of the site, and give us CPTED recommendation, crime prevention for environmental design recommendations. It resulted in us having to actually make improvements to our sites, such as lighting levels, the types of locks we utilize, the way we manage our master key site system, et cetera. And then it provided training to our families, to our lease staff. And then it also gave them the partnership with us to actually be able to educate our community as well on crime prevention strategies. So that's when we started in the multi-housing crime-free program. And we started using the lease addendum once we had completed that checklist of requirements that were required in order to join the program.
Mr. Moore, I thank you for being here. I thank you for answering questions, and I'm sure you've cleared up some questions that other people may have that may be listening right now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Moore? Ms. Dingfield, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Moore, for joining us today and for all you do in the community. Just a couple of quick clarifications, Leroy. Chief Delgado said that currently there's 42 complexes, probably large and small, throughout the city that are involved in this. How many of those would be yours? 5, 10?
The one primary one that I know of is Robles Park. I think J.L. Young is another one. So my public safety director is advising me that 12 total have now completed that process in order to be able to use the crime-free lease.
Okay. When I looked at the map that was shown to us earlier, Chief, and Mr. Moore, I have one more question for you. When I looked at the map earlier, it showed a couple in South Tampa that appeared to me, I think they're owned by the Housing Authority. The one down there off Interbay that's relatively new.
Yeah, I saw the same map. It did look like it was pointing to our properties. We have 3 properties in South Tampa, Gardens of South Bay, Paget Estates, as well as Basia Apartments, which is on McDill.
The one on McDill, I thought is that also Housing Authority owned?
I don't know about on the map, but we do have one on McDill immediately behind what was the Colonnade Restaurant.
Yeah. So anyway, my other question is, so let's say arguably you've got maybe 5 or 10 of these out of the 42 around the city. So you can speak to what Tampa Housing Authority is doing in regard to your due process and that sort of thing. But you can't speak to the management and the impact of crime-free on all these other private apartment complexes. Is that correct, Mr. Moore?
Absolutely. Only the 12 that are Tampa Housing Authority properties.
Okay. So, and I think that's extremely important, Mr. Chairman, because I don't want anybody to be misled, and Leroy's not trying to mislead them, and I know TPD's not trying to mislead them, but Tampa Housing Authority has, let's say, for argument's sake, 12 out of these 42 apartment complexes, and therefore leaving another 30 apartment complexes that have private management that I'm sure control and manage their crime-free program 30 different ways. But at the end of the day, we don't know exactly what that is. We don't know how they're managing it. We don't know what the impacts are. We don't know. Some of them might be strict and say one strike you're out, and others might be more lenient. But let me get back to some of the bigger issues. That's all I had. Do you want to circle back to me, or do you want to finish with Mr. Moore?
Mr. Moore, anyone else have a question, Mr. Moore?
No, thank you so much.
Okay, Mr. Moore, I just want to really, when I hear people talk about being kicked out, and Mr. Defoe alluded to a good point. We don't know what maybe some of the private people are doing, but the vast majority of complexes we've been talking about today seem to be public housing complexes, from what I've heard today, that have come forth to speak. So I want to make sure that people know housing has a different guideline, and TPD is not writing evictions for you guys, or they're not encouraging evictions for you guys, because you have your own set of rules on housing. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. So that's the bulk of my question for Mr. Moore, making sure that we have a distinction of TPD is not involved in an eviction process with housing. Again, we don't know what other folks are doing, but the vast majority of the complaints, when I'm here, or the people that are speaking today, are primarily talking about public housing from what I'm hearing today. So I want to make sure we clear that up, that housing has a different perspective of what they're doing, and they have other different rules and a process. Mr. Dingford, I'll let you go ahead and Mr. Moore, anyone else for Mr. Moore?
It's my turn?
No, it's still Mr. Dingford, but I just want to let Mr. Moore go, because he's been on waiting for a long time. I know he's a busy guy over at housing. So any more questions for Mr. Moore? Relates? Mr. Moore, we thank you for coming and explaining what public housing is doing as it relates to this program, and we appreciate your time, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Mr. Dingford, you continue, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Give Ms. time, Dan.
So it's sort of ironic that this program that was started by a private group, nonprofit group or something out west, called themselves crime-free, and that's an admirable goal. Okay, we want this community, we want the whole world to be crime-free. And how you get to the point of being crime-free is sort of a continuum. You can have excellent policing, okay, and that's what we have in the city of Tampa. We have excellent policing, but then at a certain point, you can cross a line. And I think Mr. Vieira, Mr. Maniscalco, Mr. Carlson, they all spoke eloquently about crossing the line. And sadly, and I don't mean to bring up bad stuff, but sadly, some people mentioned the bicycling program that was problematic, and that program crossed the line. And I think in some ways, historically, this program has crossed the line, not just in the city of Tampa, but in 2,000 communities across the country. And Louis, you said it the best, I think, let me see what I wrote down, but you said it the best in regard to the two key issues that have bothered me from the beginning, and maybe it's our legal training, Louis, is the fact that we are raised as second graders to learn that we are innocent until proven guilty. And as somebody who stood in front of juries in criminal cases, that's the first thing out of my mouth. And often it's the prosecutor's first thing out of their mouths too, because we all believe in that as part of our American system. We're innocent until proven guilty. And when are we proven guilty? We're proven guilty when a jury finds you guilty or you plead guilty and the judge accepts your plea. But not when you're arrested. When you're arrested, it's based on, as you know, it's based upon a preponderance of the evidence, that sort of thing. But it's not a trial. That's why our system is great. That's why our system is what it is. Because you're arrested first, sadly enough, tragically enough, no matter where it is, whether or not it's in an apartment complex or on Bill Carlson's street, that sort of thing. No matter where it is, it's tragic for everybody involved. but it's not a conviction. And it shouldn't result in a eviction under any circumstances. And moreover, the government shouldn't be involved in encouraging that eviction based upon that arrest. Not until there's a conviction or a plea. So that was point number one, stated by at least 3 of my fellow council members so far. Maybe more to come. And the other point, and Louis, I love the fact that you use the word vicarious liability, which in your world of insurance defense and that sort of thing but let's simplify it, okay? Am I responsible, should the entire family be responsible and suffer an eviction or even a potential eviction encouraged by the government, okay, because one of the family members, whether or not it's a kid, an adult, no matter who it is, okay, has gone bad, okay? If they're arrested, fine. Let them go through the system. If they're convicted, fine, okay? If they're convicted, then it becomes public record, okay? What the apartment complex do with that, that's their own business. Government should not be involved in encouraging evictions of the rest of this family because of that arrest or conviction. The rest of the family should not have to suffer. Because what are we doing? We're just moving the problem around. Somebody, Mr. Carlson, asked the question, where do they go? Where do they go when they're thrown out of here? Do they end up in Suitcase City, you know, in a lesser complex or some worse condition? Do they end up out on the streets? That doesn't help anybody. The bottom line is and Butch, I know you're taking the heat on a lot of this, and I apologize. But the bottom line on this is we talk about this program. And at this point, I don't think any of us even know what's left of this program. And you and I talked about this yesterday. What's left of this program? So, Mr. Carlson, you said you're going to make a motion. I'll sit back and wait and hear. But I think we should give TPD an opportunity to, I'd say 30 or 60 days, to refine all of this public input. Mr. Chairman, just one more minute. To refine all of this public input, to refine the input that you're getting from City Council, okay? And this is nationwide. Somebody mentioned this is nationwide. I've been getting emails from my friends
We'll talk about it.
across the country.
I hear what a lot of the councilmen are saying.
Yeah.
I've got some concerns that I need to chime in so I
Right,
understand.
absolutely. But to take all of this, you know, you guys are all about the data and you like to analyze things, and I appreciate that. So I say, let's give TPD 30 or 60 days to refine all of this information, to take all this data, take all this input, and come back with a new program. And the last thing I mentioned, Butch, to you and others on staff is, let's get rid of that moniker, crime-free, because what it does is it ties us back to that program out west. And that program out west is tainted. That program out west is not going to change just because Tampa thinks it should change, or a few other communities think it's going to change. So let's divest ourselves from the crime-free name and find a new name for a new program that focuses on lighting and building relationships within the apartments and all the positive things that you spoke to earlier, Butch, because I'm all about those positive things. But let's get rid of the negative.
Get you on round two. Mr. Brandon, you're recognized.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really don't know where in the hell to start. I mean, no one, I could say this. I got my education out in the street.
Absolutely, I understand that one.
See, I was raised in Tampa housing projects, 1860 Counter Court, Ponce de Leon.
Man.
And I really enjoyed the 14 or 15 years that I was there. We had a different set of rules. Your parents would beat the hell out of you if you did something wrong.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's number one.
Yep.
Number two, snitching. We didn't use that word snitching. We just got even. Number three, you have to have some rules and some respect when you live in a close proximity with a lot of people living in that proximity where you live at, which we don't have now. That's why some of these developments have gone down into looking to houses now that are normal, where an individual in the middle class can live without the close confine of somebody else. Number 4, I remember the project manager named Mr. Haggerty. He was a retired sheriff deputy or somewhere up in the chain of the sheriff department. And the little guy named Lewis, who was in charge of keeping everybody happy and doing the right thing. And I remember on Thursday nights at the housing projects at the office on 18th and 26th Avenue, they have movies for you. And they give you an ice cream or an icicle or something, so you could come in and they could talk to you and you see a movie of some sort. That was before even TV, just about. So I was highly educated. You don't have to be smart to understand what's going on. You see, when you're young, it ain't what you want to do, it's what you see others do when you're growing up that you want to do, because if they have a bankroll and you ain't got 2 cents to do something, you want to do the same thing they're doing. And there's where the problem comes in. We talk all about the police department, we talk all about the rights of the people, the rights of there are rights and there really is no rights. I remember when, and even Mr. Moore and the good people working at the Housing Authority now don't realize what happened back in the 50s. But I can tell you, if your lawn wasn't mowed, this is not about drugs, they give you a notice to mow your lawn. Now, well, it sounds like a normal thing. There's only one thing. We didn't have lawnmowers. We certainly didn't have gas lawnmowers. So I have to go to my skates and go to my grandmother's house on Sanchez Street, pick up a lawnmower, put it behind me, and roll it all the way to 26th and 20th to mow the lawn. So those set of rules that you have to follow, if not, they take you out. The same thing applies today. It's not about liberal or strict. It's about what's right and what's wrong. And between those two things, the feds, in fact, the federal government, anti-drug, remember that, the drug king, this, that, and the other? They didn't allow you to smoke marijuana. Now they're selling it to you to make a profit. So all these things are happening, and this ridiculous earth that we live in that we're trying to destroy little by little, one day at a time. So we're just as bad as any animal on the earth. We create things, shoot things. We didn't have guns, but guns then was something no one could have other than those that were in law enforcement and such, and people that can afford to buy them. There was never a law that says you couldn't buy a gun. Problem is, nobody had the money to buy one. Now you have gun shows. I don't remember no gun show growing up. I also don't remember no violence on TV. I also remember no violence on something that you have now, your phone. Everywhere you turn, the kids are being raised to see people die. You can buy one of those little things you play on the TV, and everybody dies but you. So you're growing up in this world that's confusing to you, so you go buy a gun. But when you're a kid, you memorize that everybody that you shot, they were up the next day playing around again. The little miniature things of Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, they didn't fight. But there's a lot of things on TV today, and we're missing the point on why people have guns. They have guns because the young people have guns, so you grow up being a gun owner. And if they don't have it, they'll steal it, or they'll buy it off of somebody else who stole the gun. So we live in a society, anything anybody does is wrong. So what does anybody do that's right? The law that I grew up in, your mother and father were the lawyers, your mother and father was the doctor, your mother and father was a law enforcement officer. And your family was the jury. And let me tell you something. By the time I did something wrong, by the time I got home, my aunt, my mother, my uncle, my cousin, everybody knew about it, even though there was no cell phones. So if I have one more minute,
Yes,
Mr. Chairman.
of course, definitely.
Whether you're talking about individual rights, well, what about other people that live right next to this drug dealer or whatever he is that you're talking about now for eviction? What rights do they have? What rights are being violated by the people who live there, who kid is seeing this here, a 4 or 5-year-old, and he sees a bankroll, a couple of $100 or whatever, and he ain't got a dime to go buy anything. What do you think he or she going to do? How is she going to raise? What you see and what you hear is what you're going to be when you're growing up in some point or form. That's all they see. So what do you think they're going to do? We're festering the next generation to do the same thing of somebody else that we don't want them to do. But you know what? You got elected to do the right thing. One way or the other may be the wrong thing. No one can say what's right and what's wrong other than one word: parenting. And if you, the parents, can't handle the kid, how is the officer, how is the city going to handle a kid? When you yourself have them all the time and they're uncontrollable. I remember what my father gave me one time, a dime, and I asked him, "What's a dime for, Daddy?" And he said, "If you get in trouble, call somebody else." And that set the tone. The problem is today, we're too conservative or we're too damn liberal. And the guys in the middle, the ladies in the middle are forgotten. And that's a problem we have in society. But thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can go on for a week and a half, but I won't.
Well, I always like to listen to someone who has some knowledge, and I talked about that early experience. When Mr. Miranda talked about Kano Court. Most council members here don't know what Kano Court is. You remember how the old Belmont Heights and College Hill apartments were? It's a war zone over there till Miss Chloe Cohn and her group came in and changed that whole dynamics of Belmont Heights estates now. So you have to be able to be on the ground zero to understand how it really works. So I broke my foot over there, Mr. Miranda, jumping on the fence. I worked in Robles Park. When I see those old ladies there, when you have people on those corners and the family next to them, the mom and dad, or the mom knows that her kids are doing all kind of treacherous and dangerous things, but yet it affects the people next door, where they can't come outside, or the kids can't go to the bus stop because the bully house right there, they're beating up all the kids as they come home. Hell no, I don't want them in there. I want them out. Their kids and all, because they're not being productive citizens in that community. People talk about, it's a right to have housing and a privilege. Yeah, it's a right to have housing. Everyone deserves housing. But when you get it and you live there, it's a privilege now at that point that you keep and you do the right things as a citizen and follow the rules. It ain't just about people having drugs. There are other issues that come along with that. They're not good stewards to their leasing. They're not doing what they're supposed to do with their lease. It ain't just the police going there. I understand there were some issues. They kept fixing them. But what I'm hearing now is they have no part of the eviction process. They're strictly on the landlord who's handling the eviction process. Ms. Dingfeld, to your point, is right. Housing has told us what their process is. I don't know what the other 30 housing private developers have, but what I do know, that's their lease. And if I'm a property owner, it's my right, my lease. And I can put what I want in my lease. No little different if you own the house, Mr. Vieira, and it's your house, and you have certain rules that you're not going to have people doing certain things at your house in your lease. Now, what I'm understanding, Mr. Delgado, we have nothing to do with any leases of any apartment complex. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct.
And we are not at this point encouraging any evictions on any apartment complex, be it public or private, correct?
That's correct. That was that letter that went out in 2018.
So I hear you, gentlemen, and I respect that, and that's why I asked for a 90-day look and evaluation of the program. So if these council members had an issue, because my understanding, and I don't know if legal is listening, we do not have an ordinance. It is strictly a program that the police department came up with. That is my understanding. So there's no city ordinance. I'm not for killing the program that I know can help some apartment complexes. I've had numerous calls from a lot of landlords saying that we have no refuge because we had nothing in place. Were some of the things bad? Maybe so. Were some people taken advantage of because of that? Maybe so. But the police department recognized that. I don't encourage any family to be kicked out anywhere. But if I got a house that a family is terrorizing that community, they lost their privilege to live there. We gave them the right to having a place. And I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be able to justify having somebody terrorizing people. I got senior citizens coming here. I understand the police department, they do that. When they have an issue, they bring people those folks, they don't have cars. So they brought those people. Be it right or wrong or different, those people wanted to come and speak. They had a choice of saying, I don't want to come and speak. Or I do. That was their choice. Whether being encouraged or not, they chose to come before us. No different than the other people who came voluntarily with Florida Rising, which are very good friends of mine, and I understand some of their concerns and issues. I understand some of the concerns of some of the activists that were here as well. But I still attest, it is a right to have housing. It totally is. And we have some challenges in our city to provide housing. That's why this council has told the administration we want more money going to affordable housing. period. Take care of people in housing. But at the same token, people have to be good stewards of their housing. It's no different if you lived on the street. There is no person on this council, if they were, we had 2 houses on a block that they lived on that would tolerate anybody doing anything mischievous if they had a landlord, because they'd be raising hell with that landlord to get those people out. Family and all. Family and all. Get them out of our neighborhood. Get them off of our block. There is no difference than those apartment complexes who are saying, we're tired of this group, they need to go. But due process, Mr. Dingfelder, which you're absolutely correct. If you're arrested, it's not a, you're right. I have a right to due process. Police department is not in that. They just simply notify with this NOA notice, so a person was arrested. What the apartment complex does is on their business. Government is not involved at that point, my understanding. Right, Mr. Chief Delgado?
You're correct, sir.
So basically, we give that notice, they were arrested on property, the landlord does whatever. So if they violate their lease with the landlord, that ain't got nothing to do with TPD at all.
You're correct, and I think we heard from HUD explain that that's not the sole reason for any of the evictions. And if you don't mind, I just want to make one quick comment, because I'm hearing a lot about the notice of arrest and being the catalyst to the evictions, and I think we're making a lot of assumptions here based on that article that aren't just, we talk about being data-driven. We are a data-driven agency. We've reduced crime tremendously in the city by focusing on data. And what I haven't seen is the assumptions made in that article about these notices of arrest are direct causes of evictions. I haven't seen the data on that side of it, that's the sole reason why somebody got evicted. Again, it's simply a public record document we're providing the landlords and the managers of the apartment complex. And to your point, sir, it's just one tool that they use to make their own decisions.
Now, what I will say as it relates to it all is that in my original letter to the mayor, I think everyone needs to be at the table. I know some councilmen have some concerns about the program and what we want to end the program. But I believe we have to have some form of program to be able to help citizens, the landlords as well. We have to have something. I don't know what that something totally is at this particular point until all minds come together and then come out and in all communities, in all apartment complexes in the city of Tampa, know what the rules are and know how we operate. Now, how they operate, we can't control some of the things they do, but we can control what we may put out or the information that we may provide. So that's going to alleviate my comments right now and my concerns. I'm willing to listen to some of the motions, but in my mind, I pretty much know where I think it needs to go to get this thing moving in the right direction for all. I don't know if anybody, I'll go with round 2, or if we want to wrap this up, it's 12, or we want to go entertain some motions with some possible amendments. Mr. Carlson had his hand first, and I will look to if that's what he wants to do at this time.
There are a lot of motions, thank you, sir. There are a lot of motions I'd like to make, but what I would like to propose, I'd like to make a motion that legal staff return to City Council on November 4th with a draft ordinance that would say something to the effect of the following. No city staff person may be involved in any part of the process of evicting a resident of an apartment or dwelling based on the crime of another person in that household. No city staff person may be involved in any part of the process of evicting a resident of an apartment or dwelling based on the crime of another person in that household. The purpose of this is to protect innocent people. And if you're presenting PowerPoint slides that tell landlords to weed people out, then you're in effect involved in the process or some way. And maybe we strengthened the charter when several of us were on the charter committee a few years ago. But we have to protect innocent people. Several people talked about innocent until proven guilty. Even if a child in the house was proven guilty, the rest of the family was never charged with anything, and it's not fair to the rest of the family that happened. So it is up to the landlords ultimately to make the decision. All this is saying is that the city staff, and not just police, but city staff should not be involved in the process of kicking out innocent people. Thank you.
Chairman, may I speak? Thank you, Chairman. I understand what Mr. Carlson is saying, but I can't support that because it's like saying that no city employee can get fired because his family can't survive. I can't do that because I don't know what the city employee that got terminated for whatever can't be terminated because he got a family to raise. I can't fix the world. I can only tell the world what I think it has to be done. And we have to have some sort of rules and regulation as to where you're at. If you don't pay your rent, or if you don't pay your mortgage, you're going to lose your house. So you can't say you can't take the house because you can't, the people are not going to have a place to live. I understand all that. But somewhere along the line, we must have some guidelines and some rules and regulations of where we're going and how you're going to get there and what are you doing. I can't support something that just throwing out a fish net, hoping you catch some fish. I can't do that. But if you know what the rules are, no matter what it is, listen, there's only 9 innings in a ball game. You can go into overtime. There's only 4 quarters in a basketball game. There's only 2 halves in a baseball game. There's only 2 halves in a quarter, and there's 3 periods in a hockey game. But you can't just say, you know, I'm going to change that because I want to. There are rules and regulations that you play within. There are penalties in any sport there is, and I'm not comparing this to a sporting event, but I'm just saying, if you spear somebody with a helmet, you're ejected for the next game also. There's penalties that you have to pay the consequences for what someone does. I cannot support something that doesn't have a rules and regulation with penalties involved, because then we have chaos in the human race. Somewhere along the line, there has to be a guideline on what the facts are. I don't know what they are. There have to be consensus to the middle and find out exactly where we're heading and what direction. And I understand he's doing it for the rights of the people, and I understand all that. But somewhere along the line, somebody's got to be responsible for your own action. And if you know going in what the actions are and somebody does it wrong, then you violated the action. You violated the rule. You violated the facts. You know, if you speed, they can't catch all speeders. Or you catch you one time, you say, oh, you caught me. No, you've been speeding all your life. They just caught you for one time. But that's the problem we have in society. And I just can't support a motion that doesn't have something with penalties. Thank you.
We got off track. There was a motion on the floor. Let's follow rules of order.
I'm going to speak with the motion.
Is there a second for Mr. Carlson's motion?
Well, first, John.
There's a question on the motion.
Right, I'm going to speak to the motion specifically. I think that's what you want.
I think the Robert's rule is he has a motion for it. Is there a second on the motion to continue discussion for the motion?
Yeah.
Mr. Maniscalco, second for continue for the discussion on the motion.
Okay.
Ms. Dingfellow, you recognize, so Mr. Vieira's hand after that.
Mr. Carlson, I think philosophically I agree with the direction you're headed. Procedurally, I don't know that it's necessary. I think the program was not good prior to 2018. I think it's been improved after 2018. I think it's been improved now. And so what I would like to see, instead of us going to the process of actually, you know, drafting sort of a black and white ordinance, I would like to see, and I'll make an alternative motion that TPD return to City Council during staff reports on December 2nd, which is approximately 60 days, and come up and in writing, okay, very formal in writing, just like they do on so many other programs, what the new program, what's left of this program. And as I said earlier, I'd love us to rid our names of crime-free. I don't want to be associated with that other group because I think they're tainted, but that's not even part of my motion. I'll leave that up to you guys. But my motion is for TPD to take all of this input, return to City Council during staff reports, probably take more than 5 minutes, on December 2nd, to give us an update on what we have left and where we're going with it. At that point in time, Mr. Carlson, if we're not satisfied with the changes that have been made and the changes that will be made and the future oversight and anything else like that, then I think your motion, I'll second and support your motion if I'm not satisfied with where they are. But I believe that in the spirit of cooperation that we give them a chance to take all of this input and massage it and come out with a much better product that everybody in the community will be happy with. And frankly, those 2 issues that Louis and I, and Guido and Bill talked about arrests that this would be arrest-driven instead of conviction-driven, I think is wrong. And I hope those are that's fixed. And then the other part about the vicarious liability, that the family could go down. And Mr. Chairman, let me go to your point for a second. It's not that we think that TPD has been immediately involved in the eviction process. But if we take ourselves back to 7th grade and we're on the playground and I say, hey, Orlando, go over there and hit that guy on the mouth. And then I back away, okay, and you go hit that guy on the mouth. Am I absolved of that?
Oh, I get the point you made.
Am I absolved of that? No.
I just want to make sure they acknowledge that.
And we have to take some responsibility. And I take responsibility because I'm part of this city for many years, this city government. I'm taking responsibility for this. This was not good policy. Okay, and I think everybody in the city who's involved, whether or not it's city council, TPD, the mayor, everybody who was involved in this, and we didn't have direct knowledge of it, but we have knowledge of it now, so I take partial responsibility, and I take responsibility to help you guys fix it. So that's the intent of my motion, is come back 60 days from now on December 2nd and tell us what we're going to do together to move forward with the positive parts of this program, and let's discard the negative.
Chief, is that enough time? 60 days? I originally said 90. Is that enough time?
Yeah, I know we really talked about 90, but listen, we've been refining this from 2018. You saw it. We did some more
90
refinement.
for 60 days?
60 is fine. I'll get it done in 60.
All right. Mr. Vieira, I saw your hand. Now come.
There was a second.
On that, first of all, I want to be clear that the clerk is able to, does she have what she needs, or does the motion need to be restated in a concise fashion?
Can't hear you, Mark.
Does the motion need to be restated in a concise fashion, so as you want it to appear, or you wanted to read back what she would take it to be?
Mr. Carlson, would you rather go ahead and withdraw your motion, go with Mr. Dingfeld's motion of the revised?
I'd like to go ahead and have a vote on this motion.
Well, then then what you have then is, I believe, Councilman Dingfelder made an amended motion or a substitute motion in the case, which then I believe was seconded by
Let me
Councilman.
second the motion. I don't think Dingfelder had a second, did he?
Yeah, down there somewhere.
Okay.
So the first motion was made and seconded. The second motion was Councilmember Dingfelder's motion, which was also seconded. And I believe that takes precedence to be voted upon first to see if it supersedes then the motion that was previously on the floor.
Could I just propose amendment to that motion, please? A separate amendment, just that in addition, TPD in their presentation explained to us and the public the concise data about how they think these policies have or will prevent crime.
Sure, I'll accept that as a friendly amendment to my motion. I think they typically, try and provide as much data as possible.
Mr. Shelby, you recognize?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to check with the Chief of Police, if you can, to see if that alters the timeline in any sort of way, that request of when you want it to come back.
So we're talking about how it's going to, in the future, collect data. If I heard Councilman Carlson correctly, right? You're looking at moving forward on the new plan, what's in place to capture the data on the success of the program.
The statement has been made that this program, the new version or the old version, prevents crime, and so I would just like to see the data on how it prevents crime and how you think it will prevent crime in the future.
Okay, fair enough.
Mr. Miranda, then Mr. Citro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very quickly, just for the record, to be very clean in my mind anyway, this is not anything that City of Tampa directs the police department to do. This is something that the housing apartments or whatever association calling you that they have an eviction notice and you serve it. Is that it?
No.
No, Sheriff only serves
I want to know
eviction
exactly what the process is.
We have no involvement in the evictions process. If there's a legal eviction that happens, Chairman Goods is correct. The Sheriff's Office does evictions countywide.
So you guys, what is it that we're asking you to do that you haven't done already?
In regards to
the process of what you have, in other words, somebody's going to get evicted. That's what it is.
Well, yeah, we don't track the eviction, so I
You
can't
don't track
tell you. I can't tell you how many evictions happen without going to the clerk's office and
I
pulling it. I
understand.
can't tell you that.
So we're going to pass something that we have no authority on, is that it?
Yes, sir.
Or do we have authority? We don't have an ordinance to tell you guys what to do on this matter.
Correct. There's no ordinance on this type of program.
So where's our role in doing something, one way or the other?
Can I clarify my motion, Mr.
Sure.
Mr. Moreno, Mr. Chairman? So, Ms. Moreno, I'm not going to speak to Ms. Carlson's motion because that's a separate motion. But I'm going to speak to my motion. My motion is like so many of our motions that we do week in and week out, which is to all departments, including TPD, which is to come back to us in 60 days and tell us what this new program is going to be about.
Yeah, I understand that. and
That's
I
my
appreciate
motion.
it. And your motion takes precedent, and I'm going to vote for your motion.
Okay.
My concern is, and all due respect, Mr. Carlson, I think we don't want to overload. I think Mr. Inglewood has the right motion, and I think that's a private conversation that maybe the chief can meet with each one of us while they're going through the process, and some of your concerns be included so they can be able to know if they can provide that information that you're asking. I don't know if they can provide all that, but again, I think the motion on the floor, I think will suffice what we're trying to do, and then anything other than that, we can ask Chief Delgado to make sure he gets with each council member or his staff, or call us in to some of the things we might want to see or we're hearing to make sure they cover those bases. So that's kind of where the general parameter I'm seeing. I think we should be kind of moving towards that way. Everyone, if Mr. Vera has something else, I don't want to just keep adding amendments on something. I would just say we go with the motion, the subsequent motion, that's approved, and then if we have subsequent questions, staff comes and deals with those questions.
Just in response to your comment, Mr. Chair, I hear where Bill's coming from. I think the community deserves to hear about any, we're not asking the chief to go out and do some massive data dig prior to 60 days, but any data that the chief might have or might be able to come upon, I think that he'd be more than happy to bring to us at that December 2nd report. And I think that's the intent of Mr. Carlson's friendly amendment.
Councilman Dinkfelder, as I said earlier, because of the surge in gun violence, I do not want to see this program end. However, the table needs to be full of everybody involved, and I will support your motion, but what I'm also asking that you do is include the Tampa Housing Authority, the people who write these leases, along with the private apartment, a representative from the private apartment owners that write these leases, that then go out and ask TPD to assist them in the eviction notice. That's all I'm asking.
So,
Mr. Carl, I'm gonna get you, but I keep missing Mr. You good, sir? All right, we'll go to Mr. Carlson. Mr. Simpson, you've been heard. I think the chief has heard you, and I think.
And I need an
as
answer,
well.
but
Just I'm not going to change the motions or anything, but it sounds like mine's dead and the substitute's going to go forward, and I'll support the substitute and also the amendment that I made. But part of the reason why I want the data is because that's been used as justification for this. And the public deserves to see the data. We deserve to see the data, not just an answer. We know that data is manipulated all the time, and I trust that this won't be. But Mr. Seacher just said that violent crime rate is going up. How do we know that this isn't causing the violent crime? We're kicking people out of houses, and where do they go? Are they living on the streets? Where did they go? We don't, as part of the data, I'd like to see what happened to all these families. What happened to all these individuals? Where are they living now? And to the second point, the TPD absolutely has been involved in the evictions. We saw the presentation that encouraged evictions. And so that is being involved in it. And just because they're not the ones actually kicking them out doesn't mean they weren't involved in the eviction process. And now, what all the process says now is under certain rules, TPD is proactively giving this information to landlords. TPD could put this on a database or a list that's public, and the landlords could go there themselves. But TPD, in whatever parameters, TPD is calling landlords and giving this information. So why? For the purpose of them kicking them out. And like Mr. Goot said, if a tenant is causing crime and they're disruptive and they're hurting the neighborhood, they absolutely should be kicked out. But innocent families where, an adult brother of a family, why should the grandmother and parents get kicked out because of that? Because they had nothing to do with it. They had no idea the person was committing a crime. And we're putting innocent people in the streets, and there's a 50,000 person waiting list for housing. How could we possibly do that? So any program where the police are proactively telling landlords means that we're part of the eviction process. And so we have to take responsibility if we approve that. And I'm fine that we're going to get an update on it, but I think we have to be honest about what's really happening here. Thank you.
You want me to address his?
Go ahead, Joe.
Ms.
Ms. Dinko.
Okay. All right, Mr. Citro offered an additional friendly amendment, which I
just asked if they could be included.
Yeah, and I'll.
Restate your motion, that way she has it clear.
My motion?
Yeah.
Okay, my motion is for TBD to come back during staff reports on December 2nd with a comprehensive report about what the new program is moving forward. It's been amended, and I'll accepted the amendment from Mr. Carlson to include any and all relevant data, and I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Shelby, I was going to ask you for a point of clarity in reference to Mr. Carlson's original motion.
Well, let me just clarify, Councilmember Dingfelders, for the clerk.
Okay.
You're referring specifically to what is on the agenda as the crime-free multi-housing program, is that correct?
That's currently called the crime-free multi-housing program.
Okay, because I just don't want to appear as...
Yes.
Okay.
But perhaps it will have a different future name. But anyway, for now, for purposes of identification, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then the data part, I think, is we've gone through. Mr. Citro has asked to include or at least an invitation to a representative of the Tampa Housing Authority, as well as perhaps invitations to management from the private.
I think it's the Bay Area Apartment Association.
Okay, let's go with them. Bay Area Apartment Managers Association. And out of fairness, I'm going to add to that list the NAACP.
Thank you.
Because we should have everybody at the table, and let's have some of the opponents there as well. So that would be part of that. What else, Mr. Shelby?
Mr. Chairman, I guess my question is this now. If the maker of the initial motion wishes to withdraw that motion, we don't have to have whether to accept the amendment or not. If it's the maker of the initial motion who wants to have that vote, then the motion would only be whether to accept Councilmember Dingfelder's amendment. If you want to streamline the process, you can withdraw your main motion, and you can withdraw your second, and we can have that.
I would just like it to be a vote of the substitute.
That's fine. So you're withdrawing your main motion.
No, I don't. I would like the vote to be the substitute, on top of the substitute thing.
I'm confused.
So if the substitute passes, what happens to the main motion?
It disappears. Right now you have a motion to amend on the floor. That's been seconded. That is a subsidiary motion. You vote on the motion to amend. If it passes, the initial motion disappears, and that is yours is now the only motion on the floor.
Okay. All right. I think we're all clear.
I'm not disagreeing with the attorney, but the substitute motion takes precedence over the motion on the floor. An amendment to the motion does not take, in my judgment, I'm not an attorney, a substitute motion cannot take over Mr. Dingfelder's original motion. May be added to it, but it does not take precedence over his motion. Once you make a motion on Mr. Carlton's original motion, then that substitute motion takes precedence over Mr. Carlton's motion. The substitute motion, in my opinion, and I'm not arguing with the attorney, has nothing to do with the motion. The substitution then is added or voted on to Mr. Dingfelder's motion if it passes.
So just for clarification, I'm making a substitute motion that will, if it passes, would kill Mr. Carlson's original motion.
If you accept,
and I accepted two friendly amendments.
Then they go with that motion.
That go with my motion.
Right, correct.
Under Robert's Rules of Order, it's a two-step process. The first is to vote on the motion to amend or substitute in this case. And if that passes, then the motion disappears. But what happens is if I say to you, I make a motion that the light is red, and somebody seconds it, and then somebody else says, I make a motion that the light is green, and somebody seconds it, you don't vote on the light is green motion because you still have the initial motion on the floor. So it's a two-step process.
So what do you want us to vote on now?
If it's up to the maker, and I'm sorry to prolong this, but the rules are there for a reason, is to make the process transparent and fair. It's the maker of the initial motion. If that motion, because he indicated he's going to vote for your motion.
Why don't we just, okay.
Do what, Bill?
No, I want it to be on the record that the original motion was made, and if we reject that or substitute, then that's the decision.
Well, then what you have is make the motion that you have a motion and a second, whether to
You don't
accept
think
the
that we should
substitute.
vote you don't think that we have the right to get our proposals voted on?
Mr. Shelby, point of order, 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 Mr. Vieira, point of order. I want every council member to feel they have an opportunity to do what they need to do. So if this is the case at this particular point, Mr. Carlson adamant that he wants his motion to be voted on, then I would ask that at this particular point, at this time, Mr. Dingfelder withdraw his motion. We vote on the original motion of Mr. Carlson.
I'll withdraw my motion. Thank you.
And is the second withdrawn?
Mr. Carlson, as you should, I want to give you the opportunity, if you want to vote on, sir, we'll vote on your motion. So you would actually withdraw. All right, so there's a motion to withdraw Mr. Carlson's original motion and to accept Mr. Dingfelder's substitute.
Lewis had one last.
Discussion, Mr. Vieira.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. Just some thoughts on this, if I may. I think Councilman Carlson's motion brings up some good points, which, as Councilman Dingfelder said, may become viable once we hear that report. So, you know, the basic idea that we shouldn't have anyone in the city going through this process with regards to evictions is a good principle that, even if it's not being presently carried out, is a good principle that I think many of us can support when the time is right for it. So that's all that I wanted to say, which is I think there's some very good sentiments that are brought up there, et cetera. And I think what we're all trying to do, what many of us are trying to do is to get to this program, get to this idea here so that we can take a look at some of those, like I talked about, cracked foundations, right? Cracked foundations, so that we can have a program that effectively combats crime without having some of those detrimental effects that we talked about. That's all I wanted to say. So, thank you, sir.
Chief, so 60 days going to be efficient to be able to do what you need to do. I originally asked for 90, but if 60 you can do it, then okay, it's fine.
If you're going to give me 90, Councilman, I'll take it.
Mr. Dingfelder, you're up with 90 days?
Respectfully, no. Let's deal with this before Christmas.
I'll have it done.
All right.
And that date, you said, the clerk has that date, please? December 2nd, thank you.
Let's vote.
All right, so Mr. Dingfelder made a motion on the floor. We have a second for his motion. Mr. Maniscalco has a second. Roll call vote, please, on this item.
Dingfelder?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Vieira? Yes. Citro?
Councilman Dingfelder, thank you very much for including the Tampa Housing Authority and the NAACP. Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Goods?
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, gentlemen, let's go ahead and, let's go. It's 12:30. We'll 5 minutes past that.
Thank you, Chief.
Let's go ahead and we'll adjourn for lunch. We'll be back here at, I don't want to say, not going to give us much time, gentlemen. It's 12.
45.
What's your pleasure, gentlemen? I'll give everybody a chance. All right. 2 o'clock?
All right.
2 o'clock, and I guess I better tell Debbie to get some food because we're going to be a long night tonight for us. All right. Adjourn at 2 o'clock.
What do we have? About 6 weeks?
Shit, you got that, you got all these.
To be something I know we need. I'm tired of living up to what people expect me to be. You know that some people are different now, ain't that a crying shame? Now wouldn't it be a real drag if we were all the same? And I'm not gonna try to please eyes that just don't see. If I get myself